Welcome. I'm Magnus, and I bring you horror stories to help you relax, or maybe to keep you up at night. Tell us where you're from. Are there spooky forests nearby? If you're a fan of scary stories, subscribe and drop a like. Get cozy, and let's begin. My name is Walter Delaney, 53 years old, and I've called Boise home for the past 22 years. Life as a recently divorced high school chemistry teacher had fallen into a mundane rhythm until my colleague Edgar suggested I reconnect with nature to clear my head. I'd never been much of an outdoorsman, but after the split with Rebecca, I found myself desperate for any distraction from the empty house. The timing seemed right when spring break arrived. I loaded up my 2007 Ford Expedition, a vehicle that had seen better days but remained stubbornly reliable, with camping gear I'd hastily purchased from REI. Most of it still had tags attached. The sales associate had given me a strange look when I mentioned camping alone in the Sawtooth National Forest, but I dismissed his concerns. "You're overthinking this, Walt," I told myself as I mapped the route to Stanley Lake. The area was reportedly beautiful this time of year, rugged mountains reflected in pristine waters, the kind of postcard scenery that might help me forget my troubles. What I didn't realize was that my troubles were about to seem trivial compared to what awaited me. The drive north from Boise took longer than expected. Spring in Idaho is unpredictable, and sporadic rain slowed my progress on Highway 21. The winding mountain roads demanded my full attention, especially as daylight began to fade. I should have left earlier, but indecision had eaten away at my morning. Now I was racing against darkness. I reached Stanley Lake just as the sun dipped behind the jagged Sawtooth peaks. The campground was practically deserted this early in the season, too cold for most tourists. Only 3 other campsites showed signs of occupation, all clustered near the entrance. I chose a spot farther in, seeking privacy. The isolation felt comforting at first, a chance to truly disconnect. Setting up camp proved more challenging than I'd anticipated. The tent instructions made perfect sense in my living room, but became indecipherable hieroglyphics in the fading light. My fingers grew stiff in the dropping temperature as I fumbled with poles and stakes. When the structure finally stood, albeit lopsided, I felt ridiculously proud. I built a small fire, another first for me, and heated a can of beef stew. The crackling flames cast unsettling shadows through the surrounding pines. Something about the forest darkness felt different from city darkness, more complete, more ancient. The distant lake reflected a sliver of moon, its surface occasionally disturbed by what I assumed were fish. As I sat alone, spooning lukewarm stew into my mouth, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Not by people, the nearest campers were well out of sight, but by something else. The forest itself seemed to observe me with quiet disapproval, as if I were an unwelcome intruder. I tried telling myself it was normal jitters for a first-time camper, but the feeling persisted until I finally retreated into my tent, zipping the flimsy fabric closed as if it offered any real protection. That night, I dreamed of something massive moving through the trees. Not just the wind, but something deliberate, something hunting. I woke repeatedly, straining to hear above my own heartbeat, convinced that the rustling outside wasn't just my imagination. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, but at least daylight had chased away the disturbing shadows. I had no idea that my first night's unease was merely a gentle preview of the horror to come. I awoke to a world transformed by thick morning fog. The lake and mountains had vanished, replaced by an oppressive white shroud that seemed to swallow sound itself. My muscles ached from the uncomfortable sleeping pad, and a quick check of my phone showed no service. Not surprising this deep in the Sawtooths. I told Edgar I'd check in daily, but that would have to wait. After a breakfast of instant coffee and granola bars, I decided to explore despite the weather. The Forest Service map showed several hiking trails around the lake, and I selected one labeled moderate, challenging enough to be interesting but not likely to kill an out-of-shape middle-aged man. I packed water, trail mix, and a first aid kit into a small day pack, locked the SUV, and set off toward the trailhead. The fog began to lift as I hiked, revealing glimpses of stunning landscape. Ancient pines towered overhead, their trunks massive and imposing. The path itself was poorly maintained, with fallen branches and occasional muddy patches that slowed my progress. About 2 miles in, I noticed something odd, a tree with deep gouges in its bark, too high for a bear unless it had stood on its hind legs. The marks appeared fresh, the exposed wood still light-colored and oozing sap. Probably just a bear marking territory, I muttered, trying to convince myself. But I'd never heard of bears climbing so high to mark trees. I snapped a photo, though I wasn't sure why. Perhaps to show Edgar when I returned, proof that I'd had a wilderness adventure. I continued hiking, but found myself checking over my shoulder more frequently. The trail gradually steepened, my breath growing labored as the path switched back and forth up the mountainside. Around noon, I stopped at a small clearing to rest and eat. The silence was profound. No birds, no insects, just the occasional whisper of wind through pine needles. That's when I noticed the footprints crossing my path. They resembled human prints, but were impossibly large and deep, as if made by someone, or something, weighing hundreds of pounds. I placed my boot next to one for comparison. It dwarfed my size 11 hiking shoes. My mouth went dry as I traced their direction with my eyes. Whatever made them had crossed the trail recently and continued into the dense forest where no path existed. A twig snapped somewhere in the distance, the sound amplified by the surrounding silence. I froze, listening intently. Nothing followed, but the hair on my arms stood on end. The rational part of my brain suggested a deer or elk, but something more primitive whispered otherwise. I packed up quickly, abandoning plans to reach the summit lookout point. The urge to return to my campsite suddenly seemed urgent. The hike back felt twice as long, each rustling leaf and creaking branch heightening my anxiety. I tried to laugh off my fears. A lifetime in the city had clearly made me jumpy, but the footprints lingered in my mind, too distinctive to dismiss. By the time I spotted my orange tent through the trees, relief washed over me. The campground, even nearly empty, represented safety, civilization. That relief evaporated when I reached my campsite. Someone, or something, had been there during my absence. The camp chair lay overturned, and my cooler had been dragged several feet from where I'd left it, its contents scattered across the dirt. Most disturbing was the tent. One side had collapsed, the poles bent at unnatural angles. Whatever had done this possessed considerable strength. Trembling slightly, I surveyed the wreckage of my campsite. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows through the pines. I had maybe 2 hours of daylight left, not enough time to pack up and drive back to Stanley, let alone Boise. I'd have to spend another night here, despite every instinct screaming at me to flee. It was probably just a bear, I said aloud, needing to hear a human voice, even my own. But the destruction didn't match bear behavior I'd read about. Bears typically went for food, tearing into coolers and containers. While my cooler had been disturbed, much of the food remained untouched. And bears didn't usually collapse tents unless food was stored inside. Mine wasn't. I worked quickly to restore order, righting the chair and gathering scattered provisions. The tent proved more challenging. 2 poles had been bent beyond repair. I managed a makeshift fix using duct tape and a spare tent stake, creating a lopsided shelter that would barely keep out the elements. As I worked, the feeling of being watched returned, stronger than before. Nightfall arrived with alarming speed. I built the fire larger than necessary, seeking both warmth and the illusion of protection its light provided. The darkness beyond my small circle of firelight seemed absolute, impenetrable. I heated a can of ravioli, but found my appetite had vanished. Every few minutes, I'd shine my flashlight into the surrounding forest, revealing nothing but still trees and dancing shadows. Around 9 o'clock, I heard it, a long, low moan that wasn't quite animal, wasn't quite human. The sound echoed across the lake, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. I nearly dropped my flashlight, heart hammering against my ribs. The noise came again, closer this time, followed by the unmistakable crack of breaking branches. Something large was moving through the forest in my direction. I retreated to my vehicle, locking the doors and huddling in the driver's seat. The fire continued to burn outside, illuminating my abandoned campsite. Through the windshield, I watched the flames cast erratic patterns across the ground. Then I saw it, a massive shadow moving at the edge of the firelight, far larger than any bear or elk. The creature stepped partially into the light, and my breath caught in my throat. It stood at least 8 feet tall, its body covered in dark fur. The face remained mercifully obscured by shadow, but I glimpsed enormous shoulders and unusually long arms. It moved with surprising grace for its size, deliberately circling my campsite, examining my possessions. When it reached up to sniff something hanging from a tree branch, I realized with horror that its reach extended at least 9 feet off the ground. My hand fumbled for the ignition key, but terror had robbed me of coordination. The keys slipped from my fingers, disappearing somewhere beneath the seat. A whimper escaped my lips, and the creature's head snapped in my direction. For one terrible moment, our eyes met through the windshield, its gaze reflecting the firelight with an unnatural reddish glow. It approached the vehicle with purposeful strides, each footfall shaking the ground. Up close, the creature appeared even more massive, its breadth blocking my view of the campsite behind it. One enormous hand, not quite human, not quite animal, pressed against the driver's side window. The glass creaked ominously under the pressure. I scrambled across to the passenger side, putting precious inches between us. The creature circled the SUV, testing each window and door with frightening intelligence. I finally located my keys and jammed them into the ignition. The engine roared to life, startling the beast momentarily. It retreated several steps, but didn't flee. Instead, it watched with unsettling focus as I threw the vehicle into reverse. Before I could accelerate, it charged forward with shocking speed and slammed both fists onto the hood. The impact dented the hood and shattered my windshield, sending spiderweb cracks across the glass. I slammed the accelerator, and the SUV lurched backward, tires spitting dirt and pine needles. The creature bellowed, a sound so profound it seemed to vibrate through my chest cavity, and lunged for the vehicle again. I cranked the wheel hard, narrowly avoiding its grasp, and shifted into drive. Panic overwhelmed any semblance of rational thought. I plowed forward, away from my campsite, away from the established camp road, directly into the forest. Branches slapped against the damaged windshield as I navigated between trees, the headlights creating a tunnel of visibility in the darkness. Behind me, impossibly, the creature pursued on foot, keeping pace with the vehicle despite the rough terrain. "This isn't happening. This isn't happening," I chanted, knuckles white on the steering wheel. My mind couldn't process what I'd seen. Bigfoot was a Pacific Northwest myth, a tourist attraction, not a real threat hunting me through an Idaho forest. Yet the evidence was literally bearing down on me, closing the gap whenever I slowed to navigate around a particularly dense cluster of trees. A fallen log appeared suddenly in my headlights. I swerved to avoid it, but the SUV's rear tires lost traction on the soft forest floor. The vehicle fishtailed wildly before the passenger side slammed into a massive pine. The impact deployed the airbags, momentarily stunning me. When my senses returned, the engine was dead, and one headlight pointed uselessly into the canopy above. Blood trickled from a cut on my forehead as I frantically tried to restart the engine. It turned over once, twice, then nothing, just an anemic clicking sound. Through the shattered windshield, I watched in horror as a dark shape materialized at the edge of the remaining headlight's beam. The creature approached cautiously, perhaps wary of the vehicle after our earlier encounter. With the SUV disabled, I had only one option. I grabbed my flashlight and phone, then quietly unlocked the passenger door opposite from where the creature stood. When it circled toward the front of the vehicle, I eased the door open and slipped out, immediately dropping to a crouch behind the SUV. My whole body trembled as I heard it investigating the driver's side door, pulling the handle with enough force to rip it partially from its hinges. I backed away slowly, then turned and ran as quietly as possible into the darkness. The forest floor was treacherous, roots and rocks threatening to twist an ankle with each step. I dared not use my flashlight, guided only by faint moonlight filtering through the canopy. Behind me, I heard the creature discovering my absence, its roar of frustration echoing through the trees. The sound of pursuit spurred me to greater speed, branches whipping my face as I crashed through underbrush. My lungs burned and used to sustained exertion, but terror provided unnatural stamina. I had no destination, no plan beyond putting distance between myself and the monster. The terrain sloped downward, and I found myself half running, half sliding down a steep incline. Without warning, the ground disappeared beneath my feet. I tumbled forward into emptiness, a cry torn from my throat as I fell. The landing knocked the wind from my lungs. I dropped perhaps 15 feet into what appeared to be a dry creek bed. Pain shot through my ankle when I tried to stand, but adrenaline allowed me to limp forward, searching desperately for shelter. A dark opening in the rocky embankment caught my eye, a small cave or overhanging formed by erosion. I crawled inside, finding the space barely large enough for my body. From this vantage point, I could see a portion of the forest floor I'd just traversed. Moments later, the creature appeared at the top of the ridge, silhouetted against the night sky. It stood motionless, head raised, seemingly sniffing the air. I held my breath, pressing deeper into the rocky crevice. Hours passed in that cramped space, each minute stretching into eternity. My ankle throbbed relentlessly, likely sprained if not broken. The small cave grew increasingly claustrophobic, but fear kept me immobile, straining to detect any sound of the creature's return. Eventually, exhaustion overpowered even terror, and I drifted into fitful unconsciousness. Dawn arrived as a gradual lightening of the forest. Birds began to sing, a hopeful sign that perhaps the creature had moved on. I eased myself from the cave, grimacing as weight settled onto my injured ankle. The creek bed offered a clear path, and I reasoned it must eventually lead to the lake or a larger waterway. Civilization couldn't be too far away in any direction. Using a sturdy branch as a makeshift crutch, I began limping downstream. The morning grew warmer as I struggled along the uneven creek bed. My phone remained dead, useless for navigation or communication. Thirst became my primary concern until I discovered a small spring bubbling from between rocks. I drank greedily, not caring about potential contaminants. Survival now trumped caution. By midday, the creek bed widened, joining a proper stream flowing north. The walking became easier, though my pace remained agonizingly slow. Every unusual sound sent my heart racing, yet hours passed without sign of the creature. I began to wonder if shock and darkness had magnified an encounter with a bear or moose into something more sinister. The rational world seemed to reassert itself with each passing hour. The stream eventually emptied into what I recognized with relief as Stanley Lake. I traveled in a rough semicircle during my panicked flight. The sight of distant cabins along the far shore renewed my strength. I altered course, following the lakeshore toward the campground and ranger station, hoping to find help there. As I approached the campground, something seemed wrong. The few vehicles I'd noticed yesterday were still parked in their spots, but no people were visible. No smoke rose from fire pits. No voices carried across the water. An unnatural stillness pervaded the area, reminiscent of the silence I'd noticed on yesterday's hike. I limped into the campground, calling out. No response. The first campsite I passed showed signs of hasty departure. A tent still erected but items scattered, a camp stove overturned. The second site appeared similarly disturbed. Fear crept back into my chest as I approached the ranger station, a small wooden building near the campground entrance. The station door stood partially open, swinging gently in the breeze. Inside, papers were strewn across the floor and a chair lay on its side. The emergency radio sat on the desk, its microphone dangling. I reached for it with trembling hands, pressing the transmit button. Static. I adjusted frequencies, trying each channel, growing increasingly desperate. On the fourth attempt, a voice crackled through. This is Stanley Fire Department. Who's calling? Help. I croaked, my voice barely functioning. Something attacked the campground at Stanley Lake. People are missing. I need emergency services. Sir, we've received multiple reports about Stanley Lake. Stay where you are. Emergency personnel are en route. Can you describe what happened? Before I could respond, a shadow darkened the doorway. I turned slowly, already knowing what I would see. The creature filled the entrance completely, its massive frame blocking any escape route. In daylight, its features became terrifyingly clear. Not quite ape, not quite human, with intelligent eyes that regarded me with what I can only describe as hatred. The radio slipped from my grasp, the dispatcher's voice still calling questions. The creature advanced into the small office, backing me against the far wall. There was nowhere to run, no weapon to grab. In those final moments, I understood a terrible truth. I wasn't the first person it had encountered here, and the other campers had likely met fates I was about to share. My last conscious thought was wondering if anyone would believe what had happened when they eventually found what remained of us. whether they would heed the warning or dismiss it as wilderness mishap, whether others would come to Stanley Lake, unaware of what waited in the ancient forests of Idaho. The creature reached for me with hands large enough to encircle my entire head, and then My name is Elaine Hargrove, 37 years old, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I've spent most of my adult life working as a wildlife photographer for various conservation magazines. My career has taken me to remote corners of the world, but ironically, I'd never ventured into the wilderness of neighboring Idaho until this assignment. Pristine Idaho, the last untouched frontier, was supposed to be a straightforward 3-week shoot capturing the unique ecosystem of the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness area. I'd been preparing for this trip for months, researching the terrain, weather patterns, and wildlife. My editor wanted shots that would make readers feel the wildness of the region. Little did I know how wild things would actually get. The rugged landscape demanded serious equipment, so I'd packed my weatherproof Nikon gear, camping supplies, emergency satellite phone, and enough provisions to last the duration in my trusty Jeep Cherokee. The drive from Portland took all day, and by the time I reached the small town of Elk City, Idaho, the last outpost before entering the wilderness, darkness had fallen. I stopped at the local diner for a hot meal, where my urban appearance immediately marked me as an outsider. Conversation stilled briefly when I walked in, but soon resumed as I took a seat at the counter. Heading into the Selway, the waitress asked, pouring coffee without waiting for my order. A woman in her 60s with leathery skin and sharp eyes. She seemed to evaluate me with a single glance. Yes, for a photography assignment, I replied, suddenly feeling the need to justify my presence. Planning to capture the spring wildlife activity. A bearded man 2 stools down snorted. You might capture more than you bargained for out there, miss. Especially if you're going alone. The waitress shot him a warning look. Don't mind Jack. He loves scaring tourists with his stories. Not stories, Jack muttered into his coffee. They found another hiker's backpack last month. Torn to shreds, no body. 3rd one this year. Despite my extensive wilderness experience, a chill ran down my spine. I'd heard rumors about the area having an unusually high number of missing persons cases, but had dismissed them as local folklore. Now, sitting in this dimly lit diner with rain beginning to patter against the windows, the warnings felt more ominous. The rangers say it's just bears, the waitress offered, placing a steaming plate of meatloaf before me. But, she hesitated, lowering her voice. I've lived here 40 years, and bears don't do what I've seen done to those campgrounds. I tried to laugh off their warnings, explaining my experience with wildlife photography across 4 continents. But as I drove the final stretch toward my designated camping area that night, their words echoed in my mind. The narrow forest road twisted through increasingly dense pine forest, my headlights the only illumination for miles. Twice I thought I saw movement in the trees, something large disappearing into the shadows just beyond my light's reach. The campsite was deserted when I arrived, not surprising given the remote location and the unseasonably cold spring. I efficiently set up my tent, secured my food in a bear canister, and climbed into my sleeping bag. The forest sounds surrounded me, wind through pine needles, occasional rustling in the underbrush, the distant call of an owl. Normal wilderness sounds that had lulled me to sleep countless times before. But something felt different about this forest. An unnatural tension hung in the air, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. I drifted into uneasy sleep, my dreams filled with Jack's warnings and shadowy figures moving just beyond my vision. When I finally woke at dawn, the unshakable feeling that something had been watching me all night left me exhausted rather than refreshed. I had no idea that my instincts were trying desperately to warn me of the horror that awaited in the ancient forests of northern Idaho. I spent my first full day scouting locations and taking preliminary shots. The Selway Bitterroot did not disappoint. Pristine meadows bordered by snow-capped peaks, crystal streams teeming with fish, and forests so dense they filtered sunlight into ethereal green beams. By afternoon, my memory cards contained dozens of promising images, but I hadn't captured the wilderness's true essence yet. I decided to venture farther from my base camp, following a barely visible trail that my map indicated led to a hidden waterfall. The trail quickly deteriorated, becoming little more than occasional breaks in the underbrush. My GPS signal weakened under the dense canopy, but I pressed on, confident in my navigation skills. 3 miles in, the path descended steeply into a ravine where moss-covered rocks and fallen logs created a treacherous obstacle course. The waterfall was worth the effort, a 60-foot cascade tumbling into a perfect reflecting pool. I spent hours capturing it from various angles, losing track of time until I noticed the light fading. Packing up hurriedly, I started back, knowing twilight in the forest would quickly surrender to complete darkness. Halfway back to camp, I paused to check my bearings. Something felt wrong. The forest had gone silent. No bird calls, no rustling leaves, nothing but the sound of my own breathing. Experienced hikers know this silence often precedes predator activity. I scanned my surroundings, camera hanging forgotten around my neck. Nothing moved in the gathering shadows, but the feeling of being observed intensified. I quickened my pace, scrambling over fallen trees and weaving between boulders. The silence followed me, unbroken except for my increasingly labored breathing. Then I spotted it, a clump of dark fur caught on a branch at eye level. Too high for a bear, too coarse for a deer or elk. I reached out and touched it, rolling the coarse hairs between my fingers. A distinctive musky odor clung to them, unlike anything I'd encountered before. Suddenly, a series of low, rhythmic thumps echoed through the forest, not quite footsteps, more like deliberate impacts against tree trunks. The sound moved parallel to my position, keeping pace as I walked. I automatically reached for my camera, photographer's instincts temporarily overriding fear. The thumping stopped immediately, as if whatever made the noise knew it was being documented. "Hello," I called out, immediately regretting breaking the silence. My voice sounded small and vulnerable in the vast forest. No human response came, but a low, rumbling growl emanated from somewhere to my left. Not quite animal, not quite human. The hair on my arms stood on end. I abandoned all pretense of professional calm and ran, crashing through underbrush, guided only by the fading light and my increasingly unreliable sense of direction. When I finally stumbled into my campsite, darkness had fully descended. My hands shook so badly I could barely operate my flashlight. The beam revealed my campsite exactly as I'd left it, tent untouched, gear secured. But something felt fundamentally wrong about the space, as if it had been inspected in my absence. Inside the tent, I tried to convince myself that wilderness isolation was simply triggering primitive fears. I'd spent nights alone in the Amazon rainforest, the Serengeti, even the Arctic tundra. This was just another forest. Yet sleep eluded me as sounds circled my campsite throughout the night, subtle movements just beyond the reach of my flashlight, occasional snapping twigs, and once, a powerful exhalation of breath that sounded mere feet from my tent wall. Morning arrived with no physical evidence of visitors, but my professional confidence had been replaced by gnawing uncertainty. I considered abandoning the assignment, but quickly dismissed the idea. I needed these photos, and one unsettling night wasn't reason enough to forfeit the contract. Instead, I decided to relocate my campsite to a more open area near a stream. The improved visibility and background noise of running water might ease my nerves. As I packed, something caught my eye at the forest's edge, a partial footprint pressed into the soft earth. I approached cautiously, camera ready. The print was humanoid but massive, at least 18 inches long, with clear toe impressions and unusual depth, suggesting tremendous weight. My heart hammered against my ribs as I photographed it from multiple angles, placing my own boot beside it for scale. Whatever had made this print was no bear, no known Idaho wildlife, and it had stood watching my tent while I cowered inside. The discovery of the footprint changed everything. I relocated my camp as planned, choosing a riverside clearing with excellent visibility in all directions. While unpacking, I reviewed the footprint photos on my camera's display. The images were unmistakable, a print resembling a giant human foot, but with anatomical differences that defied easy classification. As a wildlife photographer, I documented countless animal tracks. This belonged to no known species. I spent the afternoon setting up motion-activated cameras around my new campsite, partly for security, partly driven by professional curiosity. If something unusual inhabited these woods, capturing it on film would be the photographic triumph of my career. I positioned 6 cameras strategically, their infrared triggers ready to record anything that approached after dark. As sunset approached, I built a larger-than-necessary fire, its flames providing both warmth and psychological comfort. I used my satellite phone to check in with my editor, deliberately keeping my tone casual as I mentioned interesting wildlife signs I was investigating. The spotty connection failed before I could elaborate, leaving me truly alone with my thoughts and the encroaching darkness. The night began quietly. I reviewed the day's photographs, prepared my equipment for tomorrow, and made detailed journal entries, normal routines that helped maintain the illusion of normalcy. Around 10 o'clock, I heard the first wood knock, a sharp, deliberate sound too precisely executed to be natural. Another knock answered from the opposite direction, then another. The sounds formed a perimeter around my campsite, as if I were being surrounded. I extinguished my headlamp, allowing my eyes to adjust to the firelight. Beyond the illuminated circle of my camp, the forest seemed to pulse with watchful energy. I carefully added more wood to the fire, determined to keep it burning until dawn. The knocking continued intermittently, sometimes near, sometimes distant, always maintaining that unsettling pattern of response. Around midnight, the distinct crack of a branch breaking nearby cut through the night. I grabbed my camera instinctively, its familiar weight offering illusory protection. Scanning the darkness beyond the fire, I saw nothing at first. Then, at the very edge of the firelight, something moved, a massive shadow detaching itself from the deeper blackness of the forest. My first impression was of exceptional height. The figure stood at least 8 feet tall, its broad shoulders tapering to a somewhat conical head. Dark fur covered its body, matted in places, with a distinctive sagittal crest visible along its skull. But most disturbing were its eyes, reflecting the firelight with intelligent awareness as it observed me from just beyond the circle of safety. The camera slipped from my suddenly nerveless fingers. The creature took a step forward, its movement surprisingly fluid for something so large. I scrambled backward toward my tent where my satellite phone lay. The creature stopped, head tilting slightly as if assessing my reaction. Though its face remained shadowed, I sensed it was evaluating me with cold calculation. A deep, rumbling vocalization emanated from its chest, not quite a growl, more complex, with distinct patterns suggesting communication. Another response came from the darkness behind me. I whirled around to discover a second creature emerging from the opposite tree line. Smaller than the first, but still massive, it moved with more aggression, less caution. Trapped between them, I did what decades of wilderness experience had taught me never to do. I panicked. Grabbing the nearest weapon, a partially burned branch from the fire, I waved it wildly while shouting at the top of my lungs. The creatures hesitated, perhaps surprised by my sudden aggression. Using that moment of confusion, I lunged for my tent, diving through the opening and frantically searching for the satellite phone. My fingers closed around it just as the tent collapsed around me. Through the fabric, I felt enormous pressure as one of the creatures pressed down, trapping me beneath the now useless shelter. The phone screen illuminated the interior of my nylon prison as I desperately dialed emergency services. When the connection established, I could only scream about monsters and coordinates before powerful hands closed around the tent fabric. I was lifted, still wrapped in the tent material, my body weightless in the creature's grip. The satellite phone tumbled away as I struggled against the suffocating fabric. My world became a chaotic blur of motion and terror as the creature carried me effortlessly through the forest. The second creature followed, occasionally emitting those complex vocalizations that seemed to contain meaning beyond animal communication. The journey through the nighttime forest lasted perhaps 20 minutes, though terror distorted my perception of time. We moved steadily uphill, deeper into the wilderness, far from any trails marked on my maps. Eventually, the creature stopped and roughly deposited me onto a hard surface. The tent fabric was suddenly ripped away, leaving me exposed to the night air and the full reality of my situation. I found myself in a small clearing surrounded by towering pines. Moonlight revealed a disturbing scene. The ground was littered with bones, both animal and, horrifyingly, what appeared to be human. Tattered backpacks, shredded clothing, and broken equipment suggested this place had claimed many victims before me. The creatures stood watching, their massive forms silhouetted against the night sky. 3 now, not 2. A third had joined them, even larger than the first. My professional detachment shattered completely. These weren't undiscovered primates to be documented and studied. They were predators, and I was prey. The creatures conferred with those complex vocalizations, occasionally gesturing toward me. Their behavior displayed unsettling intelligence, far beyond what any known animal should possess. The largest one stepped forward, reaching toward me with hands that seemed almost human despite their massive size and covering of coarse hair. Pure instinct took over. I rolled sideways, scrambling between 2 boulders too narrow for the creatures to follow. Their angry howls echoed through the forest as I squeezed through the gap and emerged on the other side. Without pausing to think, I ran blindly into the darkness, guided only by the desperate need to put distance between myself and those monsters. The forest floor was treacherous in the darkness. Roots and rocks threatened to trip me with each step. Behind me, crashing sounds indicated pursuit. The creatures moved with surprising speed through terrain that slowed me to a desperate scramble. My lungs burned with exertion, each breath a painful reminder that I couldn't maintain this pace for long. A fallen tree loomed in my path, massive and partially rotted. Without breaking stride, I dove beneath it, wriggling into the hollow space created by decay and upturned roots. The pursuit sounds grew louder as the creatures approached. I pressed myself deeper into the moldering wood, trying to control my ragged breathing. Massive footsteps shook the ground around my hiding place. Through a small gap in the roots, I watched enormous feet circle the fallen trunk. The creatures communicated in low grunts and those disturbing, almost language vocalizations. One began tearing at the rotted wood of the trunk, powerful hands ripping away chunks that had taken nature decades to decompose. My hiding place was disintegrating around me. In desperate silence, I inched toward the opposite end of the hollow trunk, moving centimeter by agonizing centimeter to avoid detection. The creatures continued their methodical destruction of my shelter, working from the end where I had entered. Just as I reached the far opening, a powerful blow shook the entire trunk, sending rotted debris showering down upon me. I burst from the trunk's far end, immediately sprinting down a steep incline that appeared suddenly before me. The creatures roared in unison, the sound vibrating through my chest as they renewed their pursuit. The slope grew steeper, my descent becoming more controlled fall than run. Ahead, moonlight glinted off water, a river cutting through the valley below. The water offered my only hope. These creatures, whatever they were, might hesitate to follow me into a fast-moving current. I reached the riverbank and plunged in without hesitation, the frigid water stealing my breath. The current immediately swept me downstream, powerful enough to make swimming nearly impossible. Behind me, enraged howls suggested the creatures had reached the riverbank. I managed to keep my head above water, allowing the current to carry me away from my pursuers. Twice I nearly drowned passing through rapids, my body slammed against partially submerged rocks. After what seemed an eternity, the river widened and slowed enough for me to direct myself toward the far shore. Exhausted beyond measure, I dragged myself onto a gravel bank and collapsed. Dawn was breaking as consciousness returned. My body was a catalog of injuries, bruised ribs, lacerated hands, possible concussion. But I was alive, and seemingly far from the creature's territory. The river had carried me several miles downstream by my estimation. Standing shakily, I oriented myself using the rising sun and began the long trek back to civilization. Each step was agony, but fear drove me forward. The forest seemed different here, lighter, less oppressive. Normal wildlife sounds had returned, birds calling from the canopy above. I allowed myself to hope that perhaps the creatures maintained strict territorial boundaries, that I had escaped their hunting grounds. That hope lasted until midday. I'd been following the river for hours, reasoning it must eventually lead to a road or settlement. My pace had slowed considerably, injuries and exhaustion taking their toll. During a brief rest, I noticed something troubling. The forest had fallen silent again, that same unnatural quiet I'd experienced before the creatures appeared. Rising quickly despite protesting muscles, I scanned my surroundings. Nothing moved, Yet the sensation of being watched returned with crushing intensity. They had found me again, somehow tracking me despite the river crossing. Perhaps they knew these forests so intimately that they could predict where the current would deposit a helpless human. I abandoned stealth for speed, ignoring the pain shooting through my legs as I ran parallel to the river. The terrain gradually became less steep, the forest thinning slightly. Through gaps in the trees, I glimpsed what appeared to be a structure in the distance, a cabin or outpost of some kind. Civilization, safety, witnesses, everything I desperately needed. As I neared the building, details became clearer. It was indeed a cabin, but obviously abandoned. Windows broken, roof partially collapsed. Still, it represented shelter and possibly tools or communication equipment. I approached cautiously, aware that my pursuers might be watching from the surrounding forest. The cabin door hung from a single hinge. Inside, dust covered every surface, suggesting years of abandonment. What had once been furniture lay in splintered ruins, scattered across the floor. Most disturbing were the walls, covered in frantic writings and crude drawings depicting tall, hairy figures surrounding stick-figure humans. The previous occupant had experienced exactly what I was going through. A disturbing thought struck me. What if this wasn't a coincidence? What if these creatures deliberately herded lost humans toward this location? The cabin suddenly felt less like sanctuary and more like a trap. I backed toward the door, intent on continuing downstream rather than remaining in this obvious dead end. Too late. A familiar rumbling growl came from just outside. The largest creature filled the doorway completely, its massive frame blocking the only exit. Behind me, wood splintered as another creature broke through the rear wall of the cabin. They had coordinated their approach, cutting off all escape routes with tactical precision that defied explanation. Cornered, I did the only thing I could. I raised my camera and began documenting them. If I wouldn't survive this encounter, perhaps my final images would. The flash illuminated their features with clinical clarity. The prominent brow ridges, the deep-set eyes showing unmistakable intelligence, the powerful jaws capable of crushing bone. They hesitated, seemingly confused by the flashing light. Using their momentary distraction, I lunged toward a partially collapsed section of wall, hoping to squeeze through before they could react. I nearly made it, freedom just inches away, when powerful fingers closed around my ankle. The grip was unbreakable, the strength behind it incomprehensible. I was pulled backward into the cabin, my camera flying from my grasp. What followed defies complete description. The creatures didn't simply kill me, they studied me first. Their vocalizations took on an almost conversational quality as they examined my clothing, my equipment, my physical structure. Their behavior suggested not just animal predation, but scientific curiosity. Most disturbing was the smaller creature retrieving my camera, turning it over in its massive hands with evident understanding of its purpose. I realized with horror that these weren't just undiscovered primates. They represented something else entirely. Something that had evolved parallel to humans, developing intelligence while remaining hidden in these remote forests. Something that understood us well enough to hunt us deliberately, to recognize our technology, to communicate about us. The last thing I witnessed was the largest creature carefully placing my camera on a shelf where other collected human items had been arranged. Watches, phones, GPS units, all displayed with unsettling purpose. This wasn't random violence. It was systematic study. They were learning about us, documenting us, perhaps preparing for something beyond my comprehension. As the creatures closed in, I understood the terrifying truth. My disappearance would join dozens of others attributed to wilderness accidents, animal attacks, or simply getting lost. Authorities would search, find nothing conclusive, and ultimately mark another statistic in the files of missing persons. Meanwhile, these creatures would continue their silent observation from the shadows, growing more knowledgeable about their most dangerous prey, humans. My assignment to capture the wildness of Idaho had succeeded beyond anyone's imagination. I had found something truly wild, something that existed in defiance of our belief that we had cataloged and classified every creature on Earth. My only regret was that no one would ever see the proof locked in my camera's memory card, displayed like a trophy in that horrifying cabin deep in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. Dust kicks up under my tires as I ease my old Jeep Wrangler down the gravel road. I'm Harlan Voss, 47 years old, from Boise, Idaho. Been living there my whole life. But today I'm headed to the Payette National Forest, a good 3-hour drive north. It's my first solo camping trip in years, a chance to clear my head after a rough divorce. My buddy Everett Klein, 50, and his cousin Marla Tuttle, 45, are meeting me there. Everett's a burly mechanic from McCall, always got a story to tell. Marla's quieter, a nurse from New Meadows, but tough as nails. They're bringing Everett's beat-up Chevy Blazer, but I'm rolling in alone. The forest smells sharp, pine and damp earth, like it's holding its breath. I pull into the campsite near Lick Creek, a spot Everett swore by for its solitude. Nobody else around, just trees stretching forever. My Jeep's packed tight. Tent, cooler, fishing gear, and a worn paperback I keep meaning to read. I'm no stranger to the outdoors, but something about this place feels heavier than I expected, like the air's got eyes. I shake it off, chalk it up to being alone too long. Everett and Marla show up an hour later, their Blazer rattling like it's on its last legs. Everett's grinning, hauling out a crate of beer, already cracking jokes about my fancy Jeep. Marla's got her medical kit slung over her shoulder, like she's expecting trouble. We set up camp, 2 tents, a fire pit, and a folding table for cards. The sun's dipping low, painting the sky bloody orange. It's peaceful, but I catch Marla glancing at the trees, her jaw tight. We're laughing over Everett's terrible poker bluff when I notice the quiet. No birds, no wind, just our voices bouncing off the pines. I mention it, half joking, but Everett waves it off, says it's just the forest settling down. Marla doesn't look convinced. She's poking the fire, her eyes darting to the shadows beyond our circle of light. I tell myself it's nothing, but my gut's starting to twist, like I've stepped into something I can't quite see. Dinner's simple. Hot dogs and beans cooked over the flames. Everett's telling a story about a bear he swear he saw last summer, but I'm only half listening. My mind's on the woods, how they seem to lean in closer now that it's dark. I've camped plenty, but this feels different, disturbing in a way I can't pin down. Like when you walk into a room and know someone was just there, watching. Marla's the first to call it a night, saying she's beat from a long shift. She heads to her tent, leaving me and Everett by the fire. He's quieter now, staring into the flames like they owe him answers. I ask if he's okay, and he just nods, but there's a tightness in his voice. I don't push. Instead, I grab another beer, trying to ignore the prickle on my neck, like something's out there, waiting for us to look away. The fire's dying down, and I'm about to turn in when I see it. A flicker of movement between the trees. Not a shadow, but something solid, gone before I can blink. My heart kicks up, but I don't say anything. Everett's already snoring in his chair. I tell myself it's a deer, maybe a bear, but it didn't move like either. Too tall, too deliberate. The horror of it lingers, sharp and unformed, like a bad dream you can't shake. I stay up longer than I mean to, feeding the fire, keeping my flashlight close. The forest is dead silent now, not even a cricket. I think about waking Everett, but what would I say? That I'm spooked by nothing? Instead, I crawl into my tent, zipping it tight. My sleeping bag feels flimsy, like it can't keep out whatever's out there. I lie awake, listening, my pulse loud in my ears. As I drift toward sleep, I swear I smell something, musky, like wet fur and rot. It's faint, but it's there, curling into my tent like a warning. I grip my pocket knife, knowing it's useless against whatever's making my skin crawl. The forest stays quiet, but it's not empty. Something's watching, and I'm starting to think this trip was a mistake. Morning hits like a slap, cold and gray through the tent's mesh window. I barely slept, my eyes gritty from staring into the dark all night. That smell, wet fur and rot, stuck with me, but it's gone now, replaced by damp pine and coffee brewing outside. I crawl out, joints creaking, and find Marla already up, hunched over the fire with a metal percolator. She looks as rough as I feel, her face pinched like she's carrying something heavy. Everett's still snoring in his tent, loud enough to scare off anything sane. Marla hands me a tin mug, the coffee bitter but warm. We don't talk much, just sip and watch the mist curl through the trees. I want to ask if she noticed anything last night, but her silence feels like a wall. Instead, I mention the movement I saw, keeping it casual, like it's no big deal. She freezes, her mug halfway to her mouth, then says she thought she saw something too, tall, near the creek. Her voice is steady, but her eyes scream horror. Everett finally stumbles out, hair a mess, grinning like nothing's wrong. He's all about breakfast, tossing bacon into a skillet, but I catch him glancing at the woods when he thinks I'm not looking. We eat, the grease sitting heavy in my stomach. I suggest a hike to shake off the weirdness, maybe check out the creek trail. Marla's hesitant, says she'd rather stay close, but Everett's all in, calling her a worrywart. I side with him, thinking fresh air might clear my head. We pack light, water, snacks, a map I barely trust. My Jeep's staying put, the trail's too narrow for it. As we head out, I notice Marla's gripping her pocket knife like it's a lifeline. The forest feels alive now, birds chirping, but it's not comforting. It's like the woods are putting on a show, hiding something scary just out of sight. The trail's muddy, slowing us down, and I'm already regretting not sticking to camp. About a mile in, Everett stops dead, pointing at a tree. The bark shredded, long gashes too high for a bear. My stomach twists, disturbing doesn't cover it. Marla's whispering about cougars, but Everett shakes his head, says it's something else. He's not joking now, and that scares me more than the marks. We keep moving, but the air feels thicker, like it's pressing down on us. I'm starting to think we should have listened to Marla. We reach the creek, water rushing cold and clear. I'm splashing my face, trying to shake the unease, when Marla grabs my arm. She's staring across the bank, where the bushes are flattened, like something heavy rolled through. Not a path, but a swath, wide enough for, I don't know what. My mind flashes to stories I've heard. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you call it. I laugh it off, but it sounds forced, even to me. Everett's all for checking it out, says it's probably just a fallen log. I'm not so sure, but I follow, not wanting to look like a coward. Marla's dragging her feet, muttering about bad ideas. We cross the creek, boots soaking, and find more broken branches, a faint trail leading deeper. It's not natural, and the horror of it sinking in. I'm thinking about that smell last night, how it didn't belong. We're in over our heads, but nobody says it. Back at camp by noon, we're all on edge. Everett's trying to lighten the mood, cracking open a beer, but Marla's pacing, saying we should pack up and go. I'm torn. Part of me wants to bolt, but I drove 3 hours for this, and quitting feels like letting the forest win. We argue, voices low so the trees don't hear. Everett calls it nerves, Marla calls it sense. I'm stuck in the middle, my gut screaming something's wrong. As the sun dips, I notice our fire pit's messed up, rocks scattered, like someone kicked it over. Not an animal, not the wind. My heart's pounding, but I don't say anything, just start rebuilding it. Marla's watching me, her face pale, and Everett's finally quiet. The forest's closing in, and I'm starting to think we've stumbled into something we can't walk away from. Twilight's bleeding through the trees, turning everything a sickly purple. I'm stacking firewood, trying to keep my hands busy, but my eyes keep darting to the shadows. The air's heavy, like a storm's coming, but the sky's clear. Marla's sitting on a camp chair, her knife out, carving pointless grooves into a stick. Everett's poking at the fire, but he's not talking, which is worse than his usual chatter. That messed up fire pit's still nagging at me. Nobody's owned up to it, and I know it wasn't us. I'm about to suggest dinner when a branch snaps, loud, like a gunshot. We all freeze. It's not far, maybe 50 yards past the tents. My heart's hammering, and I'm gripping a log so hard my knuckles ache. Marla's on her feet, whispering for us to stay quiet. Everett's squinting into the dark, his hand on the hatchet by his side. Another snap, closer, deliberate. This isn't a deer stumbling around. It's something big, and it's not scared of us. I grab my flashlight, flick it on, and aim it toward the sound. The beam catches nothing but trees, but the shadows twist like they're alive. Marla hisses at me to turn it off, says it's giving us away. I do, but not before I see something. Tall, hunched, just beyond the light's reach. My stomach drops, horror clawing up my throat. I tell myself it's a trick of the dark, but my body's screaming to run. We huddle by the fire, keeping it low so it doesn't blind us. Everett's muttering about bears, but his voice is shaking. Marla's not buying it. She's talking about stories her grandpa told, about things in these woods that don't leave tracks like animals do. Bigfoot, she says, half whispering, like saying it louder will make it real. I want to laugh, but the memory of that smell, musky, rotten, hits me hard. It's not funny anymore. A low grunt echoes from the trees, deep enough to rattle my bones. It's not human, not animal, just wrong. Marla grabs my arm, her nails digging in. Everett's got the hatchet up, his knuckles white. The grunt comes again, closer, circling us. I'm sweating despite the cold, my mind racing. My Jeep's 20 feet away, but running feels like suicide. The forest's alive with that disturbing presence, and it's not hiding anymore. Something crashes through the brush, heavy and fast, stopping just outside our firelight. I can't see it, but I feel it. Watching, waiting. My flashlight's in my hand, but I don't dare turn it on. Marla's breathing in sharp gasps, and Everett's cursing under his breath, calling it a bluff. Then we hear it. A slow, deliberate scrape, like something dragging a stick along my Jeep. My blood runs cold. That's no bear. I'm thinking about the gashes on that tree, the flattened bushes by the creek. My mind's screaming Bigfoot, but I can't say it out loud. It's too crazy, too scary. Instead, I whisper we should get to the Jeep, all of us now. Marla nods, but Everett's stubborn, says we can't leave our gear. I snap at him. Gear's replaceable, we're not. The scraping stops, and the silence is worse, like the calm before a slaughter. We're inching toward the Jeep, staying low, when a rock sails out of the dark and smashes into the fire, sending sparks everywhere. Marla stifles a scream, and I'm fighting to keep my legs from buckling. Another rock lands, closer, kicking up dirt. It's toying with us, hurting us like prey. The horror's real now, sinking into my bones. I've never felt this small, this helpless. I'm almost at the Jeep when I hear it. A guttural bellow, so loud it shakes the ground. It's behind us, maybe 20 feet, maybe less. My keys are in my pocket, but my hands are shaking so bad I can barely grab them. Marla's sobbing quietly, and Everett's still clutching that hatchet like it'll do any good. The bellow cuts off, and I swear I hear breathing. Deep, wet, too close. We're not alone, and whatever's out there is done playing games. My keys slip in my sweaty hands, clattering against the Jeep's door. I curse under my breath, heart pounding so hard I can't think. Marla's pressed against my back, her breath ragged, while Everett's scanning the dark, hatchet raised like he's ready to fight a nightmare. That bellow's still ringing in my ears, and the air's thick with that rotten, musky stench again. I finally jam the key in, unlock the Jeep, and hiss for everyone to get in. The forest's dead quiet now, but it's not empty. Something's watching, and it's close. I slide into the driver's seat. Marla scrambles into the back, and Everett takes shotgun, slamming his door so loud I flinch. My hands shake as I turn the ignition. The engine sputters, and for one horrible second, I think it's dead. Then it roars to life, headlights cutting through the dark. I'm about to floor it when something massive slams into the passenger side, rocking the Jeep. Marla screams, and I catch a glimpse. Tall, hairy, eyes glinting like wet stones. It's real, and it's pissed. I hit the gas, tires spitting gravel as we lurch down the narrow road. The Jeep's bouncing hard, branches scraping the roof like fingers trying to claw us back. Everett's yelling to go faster, but I'm already pushing it, the speedometer climbing past what's safe. In the rear view, I see nothing but darkness, but I feel it, chasing, keeping pace. The horror's choking me, like I'm drowning in it. I've never driven this scared, not even in Boise blizzards. A curve comes up too fast, and I swerve, barely keeping us on the path. Marla's praying in the back, words tumbling out between sobs. Everett's gripping the hatchet, muttering about turning back to fight. I snap at him to shut up, fighting suicide. Something crashes behind us, trees snapping like matchsticks. It's not giving up. My mind's racing. Payette's got ranger stations, but the nearest one's miles away, and I don't know if we'll make it. The road dips, and the Jeep hits a rut, jarring my teeth. For a second, I think we're stuck, but we lurch free. Then I hear it. A howl, so deep it vibrates in my chest, coming from the left now. It's flanking us, cutting through the woods faster than we can drive. I'm sweating through my jacket, the steering wheel slick. Marla's begging me to keep going, but I'm starting to think there's no outrunning this thing. Headlights catch a sign, Lick Creek Road, half a mile to the highway. Hope flares, but it's fragile. I'm weaving through ruts, praying the tires hold. Everett's quiet now, staring out his window like he sees something. I don't ask what, don't want to know. Another thud hits the roof, denting it inward, and Marla yelps. I floor it, the engine screaming, but the highway's so close I can taste it. Whatever's out there isn't done with us yet. We hit pavement, tires screeching as I swing onto the highway. No more trees, just open road, but I don't slow down. My heart's still jackhammering, and I'm checking the mirrors every second. Nothing's there, but the stench lingers, clinging to the Jeep like a curse. Marla's crying softly, and Everett's gripping that hatchet like it's all he's got. I'm shaking so bad I can barely steer, but we're alive, for now. I'm thinking we've made it, that the lights of McCall aren't far. But then I notice the gas gauge, hovering near empty. My stomach drops. I filled up before we left. No way it's this low already. Everett sees it too, his face gray. Marla's whispering about sabotage, and the thought's too scary to touch. The highway's empty, no cars, no help, and the dark's pressing in like it's hungry. We're limping along, the engine coughing, when I spot a pull-out ahead, a gravel patch with a call box. It's our only shot. I ease off the gas, praying we make it, but the Jeep's fading fast. The forest looms on both sides, and I swear I see movement, tall, fast, keeping pace. My hands are ice, my throat tight with horror. We're not out of this yet, and I'm starting to think we never will be. The Jeep sputters to a stop just shy of the pullout, engine dying with a pathetic wheeze. I slam my fist on the wheel, cursing myself for not checking the tank closer. Marla's voice is shrill, saying we need to run for the call box, but Everett's shaking his head, saying it's a trap. My head's spinning. Trap or not, sitting here's worse. That muskie stinks back, faint but growing, and the horror's clawing at me, telling me we're out of time. I grab my flashlight and a tire iron from the back. Everett's got his hatchet, and Marla's clutching her knife, her face pale but set. We step out, the night swallowing us whole. The call box is maybe 100 yards, but it feels like a mile. Every step's loud, gravel crunching, our breaths rasping. I'm scanning the trees, expecting those glinting eyes again. Nothing moves, but I know it's there, waiting for us to screw up. We're halfway when Marla trips, her ankle twisting with a sickening pop. She bites back a scream, but it's loud enough. I help her up, her weight heavy on my shoulder. Everett's hissing for us to hurry, but I can't leave her. The call box is close, its faded red paint a lifeline. I'm dragging Marla, my arm burning, when I hear it. A low growl, so close it's like it's inside me. My blood's ice, but I keep moving, one step at a time. Everett's ahead, reaching the box first. He's yanking at the receiver, but his face falls. It's dead, wires dangling like guts. He kicks the pole, swearing, and I want to scream. Marla's sobbing, saying we're done for. I'm trying to think. McCall's maybe 5 miles. We could walk, but the growl comes again, louder, from the trees to our right. The horror's real now, no denying it. We've walked right into its game. I'm about to say we should hide when Everett bolts, yelling he's going for help. I shout for him to stop, but he's gone, crashing through the brush. Marla's clinging to me, her ankle useless. I'm torn. Go after him or stay. I choose Marla, half carrying her back toward the Jeep. It's a mistake, I know it, but I can't leave her alone. The forest's alive now, branches snapping, that stench choking me. We're almost at the Jeep when I hear Everett scream. A raw, tearing sound that cuts off sharp. My heart stops. Marla's shaking so hard she can't stand. I shove her into the passenger seat, locking the doors, but it's pointless. The windows fog with our breath, and I'm gripping the tire iron, knowing it's no match for what's coming. The silence is worse than the scream, heavy with tragedy waiting to unfold. Something slams into the Jeep, rocking it hard. Glass cracks, my side window, spiderwebbing under a massive fist. I see it now, taller than any man, covered in matted fur, eyes burning with hate. Marla's screaming, and I'm frozen, the horror swallowing me whole. I swing the tire iron, but it's like hitting a wall. The door rips open, cold air rushing in, and I know we're done. I'm fighting, yelling for Marla to run, but her ankle's shot. She's clawing at the seat, tears streaming. The thing grabs me, its grip like iron, and I'm staring into those eyes, old, angry, alive in a way that's wrong. I think of Everett, of his scream, and I know he's gone. My last thought's stupid. I should have stayed in Boise. Then it's pain, darkness, and nothing. The Jeep's empty by dawn, doors torn off, blood soaking the seats. Rangers find it later, no bodies, no tracks, just a story nobody believes. Hey, it's quiet again, but the woods keep their secrets, and some mistakes you don't walk away from. The Sawtooth National Forest smells like pine and regret as I pull my battered Ford Bronco into a clearing near Redfish Lake. I'm Nadine Paris, 52 years old, from Pocatello, Idaho. Drove 4 hours to get here, chasing a weekend away from my empty house and a job that's grinding me down. I'm not alone. My old friend Thane Carver, 49, and his sister-in-law Josie Beck, 46, are joining me. Thane's a logger from Ketchum, all gruff charm and bad knees. Josie's a librarian from Twin Falls, sharp-eyed and not one for nonsense. They're sharing Thane's rig, but I'm rolling solo in my Bronco. The lake's a mirror, reflecting jagged peaks that look like they're judging us. I pick a campsite tucked against a ridge, quiet, private, maybe too private. My Bronco's loaded with gear, tent, stove, a cooler full of trout I plan to grill. I've camped here before, but it's been years, and the forest feels different, like it's holding a grudge. I shake it off, blaming my mood on too many late nights. Thane and Josie pull up as I'm unloading, their Dodge pickup coughing like it's got a cold. Thane's hauling firewood, grinning like a kid, while Josie's already scanning the trees, her arms crossed tight. We set up fast, 3 tents in a loose triangle, a fire pit in the center. The sun's high, but the air's got a bite, and I'm glad for my flannel. Thane's joking about my rust bucket Bronco, but I catch Josie flinch at a distant bird call. We're cracking open sodas when I notice the ground, soft, like something heavy's been through. Not tracks, just impressions, too big for elk. I mention it, half laughing, but Josie's eyes narrow, and Thane changes the subject to fishing plans. I let it go, but my skin's prickling, like I've walked through a spider web. The forest's too quiet, no squirrels, no wind. It's disturbing, but I don't say it out loud. Dinner's trout and potatoes, the fish sizzling over the fire. Thane's telling stories about logging accidents, each one bloodier than the last. Josie's quiet, poking at her food, her gaze flicking to the ridge. I'm trying to relax, but my mind's stuck on those impressions. Like when you see a shape in the fog and can't unsee it. I've got a hunting knife in my pack, but it feels like a toy against whatever's got me spooked. As night falls, we play cards. Gin rummy, my dad's old favorite. Thane's winning, crowing about it, but Josie's distracted, her cards slipping. She says she smells something, rank, like roadkill. I sniff the air, and there it is, faint but nasty, curling through the pines. Thane shrugs, says it's probably a dead deer, but his voice is off. The horror's creeping in, slow and cold, like water seeping into boots. I'm banking the fire when I hear a rustle, low, deliberate, from the ridge. My flashlight's in my hand before I think, but I don't turn it on. Josie's frozen, her breath shallow. Thane's squinting into the dark, his hand on the axe by his chair. It's not a bear. I know bears, and this feels worse, scarier. I tell myself it's nothing, but my gut's screaming I'm wrong. We decide to turn in. Nobody's saying why we're moving fast. My tent's closest to the Bronco, and I'm glad for it. I zip up, knife in my sleeping bag, but sleep's a long shot. The forest is silent, but it's not empty. That smell's stronger now, clinging to the air like a threat. I'm thinking about Pocatello, how safe my couch sounds, when something brushes my tent. Light, but real. My heart skips. I lie there, gripping the knife, telling myself it's just a branch. But branches don't move like that, don't pause like they're listening. The night's heavy, pressing down, and I'm starting to think this trip was a bad call. Whatever's out there knows we're here, and I'm not sure we're ready for what it wants. Dawn's barely breaking, gray light sneaking through my tent. I'm awake, knife still in my hand, my neck stiff from lying rigid all night. That brush against my tent kept me up, replaying it until my head hurt. I crawl out, the air sharp with pine and that faint, rank smell lingering. Thane's already up, boiling water on a camp stove, his face lined like he didn't sleep either. Josie's nowhere in sight, her tent zipped tight. The sawtooths loom over us, cold and quiet, like they're waiting for something to go wrong. Thane hands me coffee, black and scalding. He's muttering about the firewood, half the stack scattered, like something pawed through it. I check it out, and he's right. Logs tossed 10 feet. No paw prints. Just those weird, deep impressions in the dirt. My stomach twists, disturbing in a way I can't shake. I say maybe it was a raccoon, but Thane's not buying it, and neither am I. Josie's tent rustles. She's up, looking worse than yesterday. We eat oatmeal in silence, the lake lapping nearby. I suggest a hike to shake the weirdness. Maybe check the trail to Alpine Lake. Josie's against it, says we should stick close to the Bronco. Thane's torn, but he's itching to move. Says sitting here's making him jumpy. I get it. My skin's crawling too, like the forest watching. We vote, 2-1, and Josie gives in, but her jaw's tight, like she's biting back something scary. We pack light, water, granola bars, my old compass. The Bronco stays put, the trail's too steep for it. As we head out, I notice Josie's got a whistle around her neck, the kind you'd use for emergencies. It's practical, but it makes my chest tight, like she knows something I don't. The trail's narrow, roots tripping us up, and the air's heavy, like before a storm. Birds are singing, but it feels forced, like they're covering for something. Half a mile in, Thane stops, pointing at a pine. Its lower branches are snapped clean, 6 feet up, not like wind damage, more like something barreled through. My heart kicks up, horror creeping in. Josie's whispering about old stories, things her dad saw in these mountains, too big to be bears. Thane scoffs, but he's gripping his axe tighter. I'm thinking about those impressions, how they don't fit anything I know. We keep going, but I'm regretting this already. We hit a clearing, the lake sparkling below. I'm catching my breath when Josie grabs my arm, pointing at the ground. There's a print, not a boot, not a paw, but wide, with toes pressed deep into the mud. It's fresh, bigger than my hand, and my throat goes dry. Thane's staring too. No jokes now. It's not a prank. Nobody's out here but us. The forest feels alive, disturbing, like it's daring us to keep looking. Thane wants to follow the print, says it's just one, probably nothing. I'm not so sure, my gut's screaming to turn back. Josie's with me, but Thane's stubborn, already moving. We trail him, reluctant, the trail curving into thicker woods. The smell's back, stronger, like wet fur and decay. My mind's racing, pulling up Bigfoot tales I laughed off as a kid. They're not funny now, not with that print burned into my head. Back at camp by noon, we're all rattled. Josie's pacing, saying we should leave, that this isn't right. Thane's digging through his pack, checking his axe like it's a lifeline. I'm torn, my Bronco's gassed up, but I hate running scared. We argue, keeping it low, like the trees might hear. Josie's talking about her dad again, how he quit camping after one bad night here. I'm starting to think she's onto something. As the sun dips, I notice my cooler's tipped over, fish gone, lid cracked like it was pried open. Not a bear. Bears leave claw marks, and this is clean. My pulse spikes, and I'm checking the Bronco, making sure it's locked. Thane's trying to laugh it off, but Josie's not listening. She's staring at the ridge, where something's moving, just out of sight. The horror's settling in, and I'm starting to think we've overstayed our welcome. Dusk paints the lake blood red, and I'm piling branches on the fire, trying to keep my hands steady. That cooler mess has me rattled. Fish don't just vanish, and lids don't crack themselves. Thane's whittling a stick, his axe close, pretending he's calm. Josie's by the Bronco, checking the doors for the third time, her whistle glinting in the fading light. The forest's too still, like it's holding its breath, and that rank smell, wet fur, rot, is back, heavier now. My gut's screaming we're not alone. A twig snaps, sharp, maybe 100 feet up the ridge. My head jerks up, and Josie's already staring that way, her face pale. Thane stops whittling, his knuckles white on the knife. It's not a deer. Deer don't move like that, heavy and slow. I grab my flashlight, but keep it off, remembering how it felt last night, like shining a light would make things worse. The air's thick, disturbing, like it's pushing against me. Another snap, closer, deliberate. My heart's pounding, and I'm fighting the urge to bolt for the Bronco. Josie whispers we should get inside, but Thane's shaking his head, saying we can't let it scare us off. I want to agree, but then I hear it, a low, guttural huff, like a bull sizing us up. It's not human, not animal, just wrong. Horror claws up my spine, and I'm thinking about that print, those broken branches, how they didn't add up. We're edging toward the fire, keeping it between us and the ridge, when something moves, tall, darker than the shadows, slipping behind a tree. My breath catches, and Josie grabs my arm, her nails digging in. Thane's cursing softly, axe in hand now, but his voice is shaky. I'm trying to tell myself it's a bear, but bears don't stand upright, don't watch like that. The huff comes again, closer, from a different spot, like it's circling. I'm about to say we need to move when a rock thuds into the dirt, 10 feet from the fire. It's fist-sized, not rolled, thrown. Josie stifles a gasp, and I'm frozen, my flashlight useless in my hand. Another rock lands, closer, kicking up dust. My mind's screaming Bigfoot, but saying it feels like inviting worse. The horror's real now, sinking into my bones, and I'm thinking about Pocatello, how far away safety is. Thane's had enough. He shouts into the dark, calling it a coward, daring it to show itself. I hiss at him to stop, but it's too late. A roar rips through the night, so deep it shakes my chest, and something crashes through the brush, fast and heavy. Josie's pulling me toward the Bronco, but my legs feel like lead. The fire's spitting sparks, blinding me, and I can't tell where it's coming from, only that it's close. We're almost at the Bronco when I hear a scraping, slow, deliberate, along the side of my tent. My stomach drops. It's not random, it's playing with us. Thane's still by the fire, axe raised, yelling like he can scare it off. Josie's fumbling with the Bronco's keys. She grabbed them from my pack, thank God, but her hands are shaking bad. The scraping stops, and the silence is scarier, like it's waiting for us to make a move. I'm pushing Josie toward the driver's door when something slams into a tree nearby, bark splintering loud enough to echo. Thane spins, his face gray, and for the first time, he looks scared. My flashlight slips, rolling into the dirt, and I don't dare grab it. The smell's choking now, so thick I can taste it. I'm thinking about that roar, how it didn't sound like anything alive should. We're in deep, and it's not letting us walk away. Josie's got the door open, begging Thane to come with us, but he's rooted, staring into the dark like he sees something. I'm yelling for him to move, my voice cracking, but he's not listening. The ridge is alive now, shadows shifting, and I swear I see eyes. Yellow, unblinking, too high off the ground. My heart's in my throat, and I know we're out of time. Whatever's out there is done teasing, and it's coming for us. Josie's yanking the Bronco's door open, her hands shaking so bad the keys nearly slip. I'm screaming for Thane to get over here, but he's still by the fire, axe raised, staring into the dark like he's daring death itself. My heart's hammering. That yellow-eyed shadow burned into my brain. The air's thick with that rotten stench, and a low growl rumbles from the ridge, close enough to make my bones ache. I shove Josie into the driver's seat, she's got the keys, and dive for the passenger side, slamming the door. We're not waiting anymore. Josie twists the ignition, and the Bronco roars to life, headlights stabbing the night. Thane finally snaps out of it, sprinting toward us, but something moves faster, tall, hairy, a blur crashing through the brush. It clips him, and he stumbles, the axe flying from his hand. I'm yelling, leaning out the window, but Josie's already hitting the gas, tires spinning in the dirt. Thane's back up, limping, and we slow just enough for him to dive into the back seat, cursing and bleeding from a gash on his arm. The Bronco lurches down the trail, branches clawing the windshield like they're alive. I'm gripping the dash, my stomach in knots as Josie weaves through ruts, the speedometer climbing past Sane. In the rear view, I see nothing but black, but I feel it, chasing, relentless. The horror's choking me, like I'm breathing fear instead of air. Thane's panting, saying it wasn't a bear, his voice high and wrong. I don't argue. Those eyes weren't anything natural. A tree looms ahead, and Josie swerves, the Bronco fishtailing. My head smacks the window, pain sparking, but I stay focused, shouting to keep going. Thane's wrapping his shirt around his arm, blood soaking through, muttering about fighting back. I snap at him. We're not fighting, we're running. Something slams the roof, denting it with a sickening crunch, and Josie screams, nearly losing the wheel. It's on us, or above us, and I'm praying the Bronco holds together. The trail narrows, forcing us to slow, and that's when I hear it. A howl, raw and deep, shaking the air. It's not behind us, it's ahead, cutting us off. Josie's eyes are wild, but she doesn't stop, plowing through underbrush, the Bronco groaning. My mind's racing. There's a ranger road a few miles out, if we can hit it. But the forest feels alive, trees snapping somewhere close, like it's tearing through to get us. I've never been this scared, not even close. Headlights catch gravel, a spur road, our shot at the highway. Josie guns it, the Bronco bouncing so hard my teeth rattle. Thane's quiet now, clutching his arm, his face pale. I'm checking the mirrors, expecting those eyes to flare up any second. Another thud hits the side, rocking us, and I see it. Massive, loping alongside, keeping pace. My throat's tight, horror swallowing me whole. The highway's close, but it feels like a lie, like we're driving into a trap. We hit asphalt, tires screeching as Josie floors it towards Stanley. The forest falls away, but the stench clings, seeping through the vents. I'm shaking, my hands useless, and Josie's muttering prayers between gasps. Thane's slumped in the back, blood pooling on the seat. I want to believe we're safe, but the Bronco's engine stutters, a warning light flicking on. My heart sinks. Gas was fine when we parked. Something's wrong, scarier than I can handle. The road's empty, no headlights, no help. I'm thinking we'll make town, get Thane patched up, when Josie points, a shadow, tall and wrong, standing at the road's edge, just beyond the light. It doesn't move, just watches, and my blood's ice. I tell her to keep driving, but the engine's coughing now, losing power. We're not out yet, and I'm starting to think this thing planned it that way. We're limping along, Stanley's lights faint in the distance, when the Bronco shudders, slowing to a crawl. Josie's pounding the wheel, tears streaming, and Thane's barely conscious, his breathing shallow. The shadow's gone, but I feel it, waiting. My knife's in my lap, pointless against what's out there. We're exposed, and the horror's not done with us. It's just getting started. The Bronco dies 100 yards from a gas station, its lights mocking us through the dark. I'm slamming the dash, willing it to start, but it's useless. Josie's sobbing, saying we should run, but Thane's out cold in the back, blood slick on the seat. That stench is everywhere, like it's soaked into the car. I grab my knife, knowing it's nothing against what's coming. The horror's heavy, pressing me down, and I'm thinking we made a mistake. Not leaving sooner, not listening to Josie's gut. I kick my door open, cold air hitting like a slap. Josie's helping me drag Thane out, his weight dead heavy. The gas station's close, but every step feels like wading through mud. My flashlight's beam shakes, catching nothing but empty road, but I hear it. Brush rustling, too rhythmic for wind. Josie's whistles around her neck, but she's not blowing it, like she knows it'd only draw trouble. Thane groans, barely with us, and my chest's tight with guilt. We're halfway when Josie freezes, staring at the trees. I see it too, those yellow eyes, high up, locked on us. My legs want to buckle, but I push forward, Thane's arm slung over my shoulder. Josie's whispering about her dad, how he saw something like this and never came back right. I'm not listening. I'm focused on the station, its neon buzz a lifeline. The rustling's louder, circling, and I know we're being hunted, every step a gamble. The station's door is locked, closed for the night, of course. I bang on it, yelling, but it's empty, just vending machines glowing inside. Thane's slipping, his breath shallow, and Josie's trying to keep him up, her hands bloody. I'm looking for a phone, a radio, anything, when the growl comes, low, close, vibrating in my gut. It's behind us, and my heart's screaming we're done. I turn, knife raised, and see it, taller than a man, formatted, moving too fast. Josie screams for me to run, but I'm not leaving them. I swing the knife, aiming for nothing, just trying to buy time. It's on us, a blur of muscle and rage, and Thane's yanked from my grip, his body hitting the ground hard. I'm shouting, lunging, but it's like fighting a storm. Josie's pulling me back, her whistle shrieking now, useless against the roar that drowns it out. Thane's gone silent, and the tragedy's sinking in. He's not getting up. I'm dragging Josie toward the road, her arm twisted wrong, pain etching her face. The thing's focused on Thane, giving us a second, but it's not mercy, it's playing. My mind's blank, just run, 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 but Josie's slowing, her breath hitching. I'm begging her to keep going, but she trips, hitting the pavement, and I'm too late to catch her. Those eyes are back, closer, and I know I can't save us both. It's on her before I can scream, a shadow swallowing her whole. I'm stumbling backward, knife gone, my hands empty. The gas station's lights flicker, and I'm alone, the silence worse than the roars. My legs give out, and I'm on the ground, staring at where they were. The forest's quiet again, like it's satisfied, but I feel it watching, waiting for me to move. Morning finds me curled by the bronco, shivering, no memory of crawling back. Rangers show up, asking questions I can't answer. Thane and Josie are gone. No bodies, no tracks, just blood and that stench. They write it off as a bear, but their eyes say they know better. I drive home to Pocatello, the Broncos' dense a reminder of what I lost. The sawtooths keep their secrets, and I'm left with nightmares, yellow eyes, a growl, and the mistake of thinking we could outrun something that old, that angry. I don't camp anymore. Some things you don't come back from. The Coeur d'Alene National Forest smells like damp moss and freedom as I ease my Toyota Tacoma into a campsite near Fernon Lake. I'm Leland Morse, 48 years old, from Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's a 5-hour haul up here, just me and my truck, looking to ditch the stress of a failing hardware store back home. I'm not alone for long. My cousin Vernon Pike, 51, and his old friend Darla Wren, 44, are joining me. Vernon's a gruff electrician from Post Falls, always carrying a thermos of coffee. Darla's a bartender from Coeur d'Alene, quick with a laugh but sharp when it counts. The lake's glassy, reflecting pines that stretch into the clouds. I pick a spot off the main trail, secluded, with room for my tent and a fire. My Tacoma's crammed with gear. Cooler, sleeping bag, a battered guitar I haven't played in years. I've camped plenty, but this forest feels heavy, like it's sizing me up. I brush it off, figuring it's just the long drive messing with me. Vernon and Darla roll in as I'm setting up, their old Suburban rattling like it's held together by spite. Vernon's hauling a tarp, already grumbling about the weather, while Darla's got a backpack stuffed with snacks and a deck of cards. We pitch tents. Mine's near the truck, there's a bit closer to the lake. The sun's warm, but there's a chill creeping in, and I'm glad for my jacket. Vernon's teasing me about my city truck, but Darla's quieter, eyeing the woods. We're unloading when I notice the ground near the fire pit, churned up like something big rolled through. Not footprints, just weird, deep patches. I pointed out, joking about elk, but Darla's frown deepens, and Vernon just shrugs. It's nothing, I tell myself, but my neck's prickling, like I'm being watched. The forest's alive with birds, but it feels staged, like they're drowning out something else. It's unsettling, but I keep it to myself. Dinner's chili from a can, heated over the fire, spicy enough to make Vernon wince. Darla's telling stories about bar fights, her voice cutting through the dusk. I'm trying to relax, but my eyes keep drifting to the trees, where the light's fading fast. It's like when you catch someone staring, but they look away before you're sure. I've got a hatchet in my pack, more for wood than trouble, but it's feeling flimsier by the minute. As night settles, we pull out the cards. Poker, low stakes, mostly for laughs. Vernon's bluffing like always, but Darla's distracted, her gaze flicking to the lake. She mentions a smell, sour, like spoiled meat. I sniff, and she's right. It's there, faint but nasty, drifting through the pines. Vernon says it's probably a dead fish, but his grin's forced. The horror's creeping in, slow and cold, like a draft you can't find. I'm stoking the fire when a branch cracks, sharp, too close. My hand freezes, and Darla's already on her feet, peering into the dark. Vernon's squinting, thermos set down, his hand near the knife on his belt. It's probably nothing, I say, but my voice sounds thin. The lake's still, no ripples, but the air's different, heavier. I'm thinking about those churned patches, how they didn't look right. We decide to call it early, nobody admitting why we're hurrying. My tent's closest to the Tacoma, and I'm glad for it, hatchet tucked by my side. I zip up tight, but sleep's not coming easy. That smells stronger now, clinging like damp clothes. I'm telling myself it's just the forest, but my gut's not buying it. Something's out there, and it's not passing through. I'm half asleep when I hear it. A low thud, like something heavy stepping close. My eyes snap open, heart kicking up. It's not a dream, not the wind. I grip the hatchet, listening, but the forest's gone quiet, too quiet. Whatever's out there knows I'm awake, and I'm starting to think this trip was a bad idea. Morning creeps in, cold and foggy, the lake barely visible through my tent's flap. I'm up, hatchet still in my hand, my back aching from tensing all night. That thud kept me awake, echoing in my head like a warning. I step outside, the air thick with mist, and that sour smell stronger now. Vernon's by the fire pit, poking at ashes, his thermos steaming. Darla's tent is quiet, but her boots are out, caked in mud like she's been walking. The forest's hushed, and it's got me on edge, like I'm waiting for a trap to spring. Vernon nods at me, says the fire pit's messed up again. Rocks shifted, one cracked clean in half. I check it out, and he's right. It's not wind or animals, it's deliberate. My gut twists, disturbing in a way that sticks. I mention those churned patches from yesterday, but Vernon just grunts, saying it's probably kids messing around. His eyes don't meet mine, and I know he's lying to himself. Darla's up now, looking rough, like sleep wasn't her friend either. We heat up coffee, the silence heavier than the fog. I suggest a walk to the lake trail, thinking movement might clear my head. Darla's against it, says we should stay put, maybe pack up. Vernon's itching to fish, says we're here to relax, not jump at shadows. I'm torn. My Tacoma's ready to roll, but quitting feels like admitting something's wrong. We compromise, a short hike, stick together, back by noon. Darla's not happy, but she grabs her jacket, muttering about bad vibes. We head out, my hatchet hooked to my belt, Vernon with his knife, Darla clutching a walking stick like it's a lifeline. The trail's slick, roots tripping us up, and the fog so thick I can barely see 10 feet. It's like walking through a dream, but the kind that turns scary fast. The lake's to our left, flat and gray, but there's no bird song, no ripples. It's wrong, and my skin's crawling, like the forest holding its breath. A quarter-mile in, Vernon stops, pointing at a cedar tree. Its trunk's gouged, deep scratches too high for a cougar, too raw for claws. My pulse spikes, horror settling in. Darla's whispering about her uncle, how he quit hunting here after seeing something he wouldn't name. Vernon tries to laugh it off, but his hand's on his knife, and he's not moving. I'm thinking about that smell, how it's followed us, like it's part of the fog. We keep going, slower now, the trail curving toward a creek. Darla spots it first, a pile of branches, stacked neat, like someone built a marker. Not random, not natural. My throat's tight, and I'm picturing that cracked rock, those gouges. Vernon's saying it's hunters, but his voice is thin, and Darla's shaking her head, saying hunters don't stack like that. The air's heavier, disturbing, and I'm starting to regret pushing for this hike. Back at camp, the fog's lifting, but the mood's worse. Darla's pacing, saying we need to leave, that this isn't just nerves. Vernon's cleaning his knife, acting calm, but he's checking the trees every minute. I'm caught in the middle. Part of me wants to bolt, but I'm stubborn, thinking we can tough it out. We argue, keeping it quiet, like we're afraid to wake something. Darla's talking about her uncle again, how he burned his gear after that trip. It's not helping. As the sun climbs, I notice my cooler's open, not tipped, but unlatched, the meat I brought gone. No teeth marks, no mess, just missing. My heart's racing, and I'm checking the Tacoma, making sure it's intact. Vernon's trying to joke, saying we've got a gourmet bear, but Darla's not laughing. She's staring at the lake, where the water's too still, like it's waiting. The horror's sinking in, and I'm thinking we've stumbled into something we can't ignore. We're eating lunch, crackers, since the meat's gone, when Darla freezes, pointing at the trail we took. There's a shadow, just beyond the trees, tall and wrong, gone when I blink. Vernon didn't see it, but he's gripping his knife now, and Darla's voice is shaking, saying we're not imagining this. My mind's spinning, pulling up old Bigfoot stories I never believed. They're starting to feel real, and I'm not sure what's scarier, that shadow or the fact I'm starting to believe it. Twilight's bleeding across the lake, turning the water black. I'm stacking logs by the fire, my hands jittery from that shadow Darla saw. It's gone, but the air feels heavier, like it's pressing down on us. Vernon's sharpening his knife, the scrape loud in the quiet, while Darla's by the Tacoma, clutching her walking stick, her eyes glued to the trees. That sour smell, spoiled meat, wet fur, is thick now, curling into my lungs. My gut's screaming we're being hunted, but saying it out loud feels like giving up. A branch snaps, close, maybe 30 yards toward the lake. My heart lurches, and I grab my hatchet, the handle slick with sweat. Darla's hissing for us to stay still, her voice barely a whisper. Vernon's on his feet, knife out, squinting into the dusk. It's not an animal. Animals don't pause like that, don't make you feel watched. The forest's dead silent. No owls, no breeze, just that disturbing weight, like we're trespassing on something ancient. Another snap, slower, circling to our left. I'm fighting the urge to run, my legs buzzing with panic. Darla's backing toward the Tacoma, but Vernon's holding ground, muttering about scaring it off. Then it hits, a low, rumbling grunt, so deep it shakes my chest. It's not a bear, not a wolf. Nothing I know makes that sound. Horror claws up my throat, and I'm thinking about those gouges, that stacked pile, how they weren't random. We're inching toward the fire, keeping it bright, when I see it. A shape, taller than Vernon, slipping between pines. It's fast, gone before I can focus, but my skin's crawling, like it left something behind. Darla's whispering about her uncle, how he heard that grunt before he quit these woods. Vernon snaps at her to stop, but his hand's shaking, and I know he saw it too. The grunt comes again, closer, from behind the Tacoma now, and my blood's ice. I'm about to say we need to get in the truck when a rock sails out of the dark, smacking the ground near Darla's feet. She jumps, stifling a cry, and another lands, heavier, by the fire, scattering sparks. My mind's screaming Bigfoot, but I can't say it. It's too wild, too scary. Vernon's cursing, gripping his knife like it'll help, but we're outmatched. The horror's real now, no pretending it's just nerves, and I'm kicking myself for staying this long. Something scrapes along the Tacoma, slow, deliberate, metal groaning under weight. My stomach drops. That's my lifeline, my way out. Darla's frozen, her stick useless, while Vernon's shouting into the dark, calling it a coward. I grab his arm, telling him to shut up, but it's too late. A roar rips through the night, loud enough to rattle my teeth, and the brush explodes, something massive charging just out of sight. We're scrambling, tripping over gear, the fire our only shield. Darla's at the Tacoma's door, fumbling with my spare key, but her hands are shaking bad. I'm yelling for Vernon to move, but he's rooted, knife raised, like he can fight this thing. The scraping stops, and the silence is worse, heavy with menace. My flashlight's in my pocket, but I don't dare use it. Light feels like a beacon, begging for trouble. The smell's choking now, so thick I gag, and I know it's close, maybe watching us fall apart. We're almost at the truck when a tree cracks, loud, like it's been snapped in half, 20 yards away. Darla screams, dropping the key, and I'm on my knees, groping in the dirt. Vernon's still by the fire, his face pale, shouting for us to go without him. I'm not leaving him, but my fingers are numb, and the key's gone, swallowed by the dark. The roar comes again, circling, and I see eyes, red, glinting, too high up. My heart's pounding, and I know we're out of moves. I'm pulling Darla toward the Tacoma, praying we can break a window, when something slams into the ground behind us, hard, shaking the earth. Vernon's yelling, his voice cracking, and I turn to see him swinging his knife at nothing, shadows twisting around him. The eyes are closer, locked on us, and the horror's swallowing me whole. We're not just lost, we're prey, and whatever's out there is done waiting. My fingers scrape dirt, clawing for the key as Darla's sobs cut through the dark. Vernon's still by the fire, swinging his knife at shadows, his shouts hoarse with panic. Those red eyes glint closer, and that sour stench, rotten, alive, chokes me. I find the key, slick with mud, and lunge for the Tacoma's door, yelling for Vernon to move. The ground shakes again, something massive circling, and my heart's slamming so hard I can't breathe. Darla's behind me, her walking stick gone, and I shove the key in, praying the truck starts. The Tacoma roars to life, headlights slicing through the black. Vernon stumbles toward us, but a blur, tall, matted, impossibly fast, cuts him off, slamming him to the ground. I scream his name, leaning out, but Darla's yanking me back, begging me to drive. I hit the gas, tires spitting gravel, swerving to scoop Vernon, but he's rolling, clutching his leg, blood shining in the beams. The thing's gone, but I feel it, lurking, and the horror's drowning me. We skid to a stop, and I'm out, dragging Vernon to the back seat. He's heavy, groaning, his shin bent wrong. Darla's in the passenger seat, slamming her door, her hands shaking as she locks it. I jump back in, flooring it, the Tacoma bouncing down the trail. Branches claw the roof, snapping like bones, and my knuckles are white on the wheel. Vernon's muttering, pain slurring his words, saying it wasn't human. I don't answer. Those eyes are burned into my head, and I know he's right. The trail's a nightmare, ruts jerking us side to side. Darla's scanning the trees, whispering about her uncle, how he barely got out alive. I'm focused on the road, praying we hit pavement soon. Something crashes behind us. Loud, deliberate, trees bending in the dark. My stomach lurches. It's following, keeping pace. The Tacoma's engine's screaming, but I push harder, the speedometer climbing past safe. I've driven icy roads in Idaho Falls, but nothing's ever felt this scary, this alive with threat. A curve comes up fast, and I swerve, the truck fishtailing. Vernon cries out, his legs slamming the seat, and Darla's gripping the dash, her nails digging in. My headlights catch movement. Tall, hunched, loping through the pines, too close. I yell for them to hold on, taking a fork I barely see, hoping it's the right one. The forest's closing in, like it's helping the thing hunt us. My mind's on the highway. Coeur d'Alene's not far, if we can just make it. Another thud hits the truck, the tailgate denting with a screech. Darla screams, and I glance back. Nothing, but the rear window's cracked, spiderwebbed. Vernon's fading, his breathing shallow, blood pooling under him. I'm shouting his name, trying to keep him with us, but my voice feels small, swallowed by the horror outside. The trail smooths out, gravel turning to dirt, and I see a sign. Forest Road 209, a mile to pavement. Hope sparks, but it's fragile, like a match in a storm. We hit the highway, tires humming, the forest falling back. I'm shaking, sweat stinging my eyes, but I don't slow down. Darla's crying quietly, checking Vernon, her hands bloody. The stench is still there, faint but stubborn, like it's stuck to us. My mirrors show nothing, but I don't trust them. Those eyes could be anywhere. The Tacoma's rattling, something loose under the hood, and my heart sinks. It was fine yesterday. This isn't normal. It's sabotage, and the thought's too disturbing to hold. Coeur d'Alene's lights flicker ahead, maybe 10 minutes out. I'm thinking hospital, police, anything to end this. But the engine coughs, the dash lighting up. Low fuel, when I know I filled it. Darla sees it, her face gray, whispering about traps. Vernon's silent now, too silent, and I'm fighting panic, my hands numb on the wheel. The road's empty, no cars, just us and the dark, and I feel it watching, waiting for us to break. We're limping along, the engine sputtering, when a shadow crosses the road. Tall, deliberate, gone in a blink. Darla gasps, and I floor it, the Tacoma whining in protest. A pullout's ahead, a Ranger call box glinting in the moonlight. It's our shot, but the truck's dying, and Vernon's not answering when I call his name. The horror's got us tight, and I'm starting to think we're not slipping free this time. The Tacoma stalls 50 feet from the call box, engine choking out with a final shudder. I slam the wheel, cursing myself for not checking the tank closer, for ignoring Darla's warnings. Vernon's slumped in the back, blood soaking the seat, his face pale as ash. Darla's shaking, saying we need to run, but I'm not sure he can be moved. That stench is everywhere, heavy as fog, and the horror's crushing me, whispering we're out of time. My hatchet's in my lap, useless against what's out there. I kick my door open, cold air biting my face. Darla's helping me lift Vernon, his weight dragging us down. The call box is close, but every step's a fight, the dark pressing in like it's alive. My flashlight's beam shakes, catching nothing, but I hear it. Brush snapping, slow and steady, pacing us. Vernon's moaning, barely conscious, and Darla's sobbing, her hands slippery with his blood. I'm begging him to hold on, but my voice cracks, guilt tearing me apart. We're halfway when Darla trips, her ankle twisting, and Vernon slips, hitting the ground hard. I'm on my knees, pulling him up, but those red eyes flare in the trees, closer now. My heart's in my throat, and I'm yelling for Darla to keep moving, but she's frozen, staring at them. The call box is right there, its faded paint a cruel tease, but the snapping's louder, circling tight. I'm thinking about my store, my quiet life, how I should have stayed home. This was my mistake, pushing us to stay. I drag Vernon to the box, Darla limping behind. My fingers fumble the receiver. It's dead, wires cut, swinging loose. I slam it down, despair hitting like a fist. Vernon's breath is shallow, his eyes glassy, and Darla's whispering we're done. A growl rumbles, so close it shakes my bones, and I turn. Too slow. It's on us, taller than anything should be, fur reeking of death. I swing the hatchet, hitting air, and Darla screams, shoving me aside as it lunges. Vernon's gone in a blur, yanked into the dark, his scream cutting off sharp. I'm scrambling for Darla, but she's running, limping toward the road, yelling for me to follow. The thing's after her, a shadow swallowing the moonlight. I'm frozen, my legs lead, watching her stumble. My mind screaming to help, but my body's stuck, the horror paralyzing me. She's almost to the pavement when it grabs her, her cry choking into silence. I'm alone, and it's my fault. I'm stumbling back to the Tacoma, hatchet gone, my hands empty. The call box mocks me, useless, and the forest's quiet again, like it's fed. I lock myself in the truck, shaking, waiting for it to come for me. Hours pass, maybe minutes, and headlights cut the dark. A ranger's truck, slowing at the pullout. I'm banging on the window, babbling about Vernon, Darla, but my words don't make sense. They find blood, the call box wrecked, but no bodies, no tracks. They drive me to Coeur d'Alene, the Tacoma towed behind. Hospital lights burn my eyes, and I'm answering questions I can't explain. It's a bear, they say, but their faces don't match the words. I'm back in Idaho Falls by week's end, my store's keys heavy in my hand. The guitar's still in the truck, untouched, like everything else I brought. I don't unpack it. The forest took them, and I'm left with nothing. No answers, just nightmares of red eyes and that growl. I sold the Tacoma, couldn't stand its dents, its smell. People ask about the trip, but I don't talk. Some mistakes carve you hollow, and this one's mine. Thinking we could camp there, thinking we were safe. Coeur d'Alene's still out there, waiting for the next fool. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, it's Vernon's scream, Darla's eyes, and the weight of knowing I led us straight to it. The horror doesn't leave. It's in me now, and I'm not sure it'll ever let go. The Clearwater National Forest smells like wet cedar and second chances as I pull my Chevy Silverado into a clearing near Kelly Creek. I'm Faye Dunham, 50 years old, from Twin Falls, Idaho. Drove 6 hours to get here, craving a break from a job that's sucking me dry. I'm not flying solo. My old co-worker Perry Holt, 53, and his neighbor Selma Crane, 46, are tagging along. Perry's a retired welder from Orofino, all grit and bad jokes. Selma's a bookkeeper from Lewiston, quiet but tough, with a knack for spotting trouble. Kelly Creek's running fast, its roar cutting through the pines. I pick a campsite tucked against a bluff, private, with a clear view of the water. My Silverado's loaded, tent, lantern, a tackle box for fishing. I've camped here once, ages ago, but the forest feels sharper now, like it's got teeth. I shrug it off, blaming the long haul and too much coffee. Perry and Selma show up as I'm unloading, their rusted Explorer creaking to a stop. Perry's hauling a cooler, already cracking wise about my fancy truck, while Selma's got a duffel and a thermos, her eyes scanning the trees. We set up quick, tents in a loose circle, fire pit ready. The sun's high, but the air's cool, and I'm glad for my sweater. Selma's quiet, watching the creek like it's hiding something. We're unpacking when I notice the dirt near my tent, scuffed deep, like something dragged itself through. Not tracks, just smears, too wide for deer. I mention it, half laughing, but Perry's grin fades, and Selma steps closer, frowning. It's nothing, I say, but my pulse ticks up, a prickle of unease settling in. The forest's noisy, water, birds, but it feels wrong, like a cover for something disturbing. Dinner's burgers, grilled over the fire, juicy enough to drip. Perry's spinning yarns about welding mishaps, his laugh loud, but Selma's picking at her food, her gaze drifting to the bluff. I'm trying to chill, but my mind's stuck on those smears, like a smudge you can't wipe clean. It's like when you catch a stranger's stare in a crowd, unsettling, hard to shake. My fishing knife's in my pack, more habit than worry, but it's on my mind. As dusk creeps in, we break out a deck of cards, crazy eights, simple and fun. Perry's cheating, same as always, but Selma's distracted, her cards slipping. She says she smells something, musty, like old hides. I sniff, and it's there, faint but rank, weaving through the smoke. Perry calls it a skunk, but his eyes dart to the dark, and I know he's not sure. The horror's nudging me, a cold finger down my spine. I'm banking the fire when a splash hits the creek, sharp, heavier than a fish. My head snaps up, and Selma's already staring, her thermos forgotten. Perry's squinting, hand on the hammer by his chair. It's probably a branch, I say, but my voice is thin, and the creek's gone still, no ripples. The air shifts, heavier, like it's waiting. I'm thinking about those smears, how they didn't belong. We decide to turn in, moving faster than we admit. My tent's by the Silverado, close enough to feel safe, knife tucked in my bag. I zip up, but sleep's a long shot. That smells stronger, clinging like damp rot. I'm telling myself it's just the wild, but my gut's churning, saying we're not alone. Something's out there, and it's not just passing by. I'm dozing when I hear it, a low scrape, like stone on wood, right outside. My eyes pop open, heart thumping. It's not wind, not an animal. Too slow, too deliberate. I grip my knife, listening, but the forest's silent now, holding its breath. Whatever it is, it's close, and I'm starting to think this trip was a gamble I shouldn't have taken. Morning breaks cold, mist curling off Kelly Creek like a ghost. I'm up, knife still clutched from that scrape last night, my shoulders tight from barely sleeping. The air's thick with that musty smell, sharper now, like it's settled in. Perry's by the fire pit, brewing coffee, his hammer close like he's expecting trouble. Selma's tent is quiet, but her thermos is out, tipped over, spilling into the dirt. The forest's too still, and it's got me jumpy, like I'm walking on thin ice. Perry nods at the fire pit, logs scattered, one split like it was crushed. I check it out, and he's right. It's not natural, not a critter. My stomach knots, disturbing in a way I can't pin down. I bring up those smeared patches from yesterday, but Perry waves it off, saying it's just campers before us. His jaw's tight, though, and I know he's rattled. Selma stumbles out, eyes sunken, saying she heard something circling her tent. Nobody laughs. We sip coffee, bitter and hot, the silence heavy. I suggest a hike up the creek trail, thinking fresh air might shake this dread. Selma's against it, says we should stay by the Silverado, maybe leave. Perry wants to fish, says we're letting nerves win. I'm stuck. Part of me wants to bolt, but I drove too far to quit now. We settle on a short walk, stay close, back soon. Selma's tense, grabbing her thermos like it's a shield, but she comes along. We head out, my knife on my belt, Perry with his hammer, Selma gripping a stick she found. The trail's muddy, slowing us down, and the mist makes everything blurry, like we're half blind. The creek's loud, but it's the only sound. No birds, no wind. It's like the forest's playing dead, hiding something scary. I'm thinking about that smell, how it stuck to us, and my skin's prickling, like eyes are boring into my back. Half a mile in, Selma stops, pointing at a spruce. Its bark's torn, long gashes high up, too deep for a bear. My pulse spikes, horror creeping in. Perry's muttering about climbers, but his voice is off, and Selma's shaking her head, saying she's seen marks like this in old stories, things her grandpa wouldn't explain. I'm flashing back to those smears, how they felt wrong. We keep moving, but my legs are heavy, like I'm wading through a bad dream. The trail opens to a gravel bar, the creek rushing cold. I'm splashing water on my face when Perry grabs my arm. There's a pile of rocks, stacked tight, like a cairn but bigger, unnatural. My throat's dry. No hiker did this, not out here. Selma's whispering about warnings, things left to scare people off. Perry kicks at it, scattering stones, but his hands are shaking. The air's thick, disturbing, and I'm wishing I'd listened to Selma's gut. We're back at camp by 11, all on edge. Selma's pacing, saying we need to go, that this isn't safe. Perry's cleaning his hammer, acting tough, but he's glancing at the bluff too much. I'm torn. My Silverado's ready, but I hate running scared. We bicker, voices low, like we're afraid to be heard. Selma's talking about her grandpa again, how he swore something followed him here once. It's hitting too close, and I'm starting to feel trapped. As noon hits, I notice my tackle box. Open, lures gone, not scattered but taken. No claw marks, no mess, just empty. My heart's racing, and I'm checking the Silverado, making sure it's locked. Perry's trying to joke about a fish thief, but Selma's not buying it. She's staring at the creek, where something's moving, just under the surface, too big for trout. The The horror's digging in, and I'm thinking we've crossed a line we can't uncross. We're eating jerky, lunch, since the lures are gone, when Selma freezes, pointing at the trail. A shadow shifts, tall and wrong, slipping behind a cedar before I can focus. Perry curses, saying it's a deer, but his hammer's up, and Selma's shaking, saying it wasn't. My mind's spinning, dragging up Bigfoot tales I scoffed at as a kid. They're not funny now, and I'm starting to think we're not just camping, we're trespassing. Dusk settles over Kelly Creek like a bruise, the air turning thick and cold. I'm piling wood on the fire, my hands shaky from that shadow Selma saw. It's gone, but my nerves are shot, and that musty smell, old hides, decay, is so heavy I can taste it. Perry's by the Silverado, checking the locks again, his hammer tucked in his belt. Selma's near the tents, clutching her stick, her eyes darting to the bluff. The forest silent, no frogs, no breeze, just a disturbing hum, like we're being sized up. A crunch echoes, sharp, maybe 20 yards past the creek. My heart slams, and I grab my knife, the blade catching the firelight. Selma's whispering for us to stay put, her voice thin with fear. Perry's squinting into the dark, hammer out now, his jaw set tight. It's not a critter. Critters don't move slow, don't make you feel like prey. My skin's crawling, and I'm kicking myself for brushing off those gashes that cairn. Another crunch, closer, deliberate, like it wants us to hear. I'm fighting panic, my breath fogging in the chill. Perry mutters about scaring it off, but Selma's shaking her head, saying we need to get to the truck. Then it hits, a deep, wet huff, like a beast catching our scent. It's not natural, not anything I've heard hunting these woods. Horror grips me, cold and tight, and I'm thinking about that tackle box, how it wasn't just stolen, it was taken. We edge toward the Silverado, keeping the fire at our backs, when I see it. A shape, tall and broad, slipping behind a pine. It's fast, melting into the dark, but my gut screams it's real. Selma's gasping, her stick trembling, and Perry's cursing, low and fast, saying he saw it too. The huff comes again, from the bluff now, circling us. My mind's racing. Bigfoot, it's gotta be, but admitting it feels like stepping off a cliff. The horror's alive, pulsing in my veins. A stone thuds into the dirt, 5 feet from Perry, then another, smacking my tent with a rip. I flinch, my knife useless in my hand. Selma's backing toward the truck, but her eyes are wide, locked on something I can't see. Perry's shouting now, waving his hammer, daring it to come closer. I grab his sleeve, hissing to stop. He's making it worse. The air shifts, heavier, and a low growl rumbles, close enough to shake my boots. Whatever's out there isn't scared, it's angry. Something scrapes the Silverado, slow, grinding, like nails on steel. My stomach drops. That's our way out, and it knows it. Selma's at the door, fumbling with my keys, but her hands are shaking bad. I'm yelling for Perry to move, but he's frozen, hammer raised, staring at the creek. The growl spikes into a roar, so loud my ears ring, and brush crashes, heavy and fast, just beyond the firelight. We're scrambling, tripping over roots, the blaze our only shield. I'm pushing Selma toward the truck when a branch snaps overhead, loud, like it's been torn free. It lands by the fire, spraying sparks, and Perry stumbles, his hammer slipping. My flashlight's in my pocket, but I don't dare use it. Light feels like a trap. The smell's choking now, raw and sour, and I'm gagging, my eyes watering. Selma's got the door open, but Perry's still back, shouting nonsense, like he can fight this thing. I'm screaming for him, my voice raw, but he's not listening. We're almost inside when I hear it. A bellow, deep and wrong, shaking the ground. It's close, maybe 10 yards, behind the tents. Selma's crying, shoving keys into my hand, begging me to drive. I'm reaching for Perry, but he's swinging his hammer at nothing, shadows twisting around him. Red eyes flash. High, burning, locked on us. My heart's in my throat, and I know we're out of time. The horror's here, and it's not letting us slip away. I'm climbing into the driver's seat, Selma beside me, when something slams the truck's hood, denting it with a screech. Perry's yelling, but it's cut short, a grunt replacing his voice. I'm turning, desperate to see him, but the dark's too thick, and those eyes are closer, unblinking. Selma's screaming to go, her nails digging into my arm, and I'm torn. Wait for Perry or save us. The bellow comes again, right outside, and I know we're not all making it out. The Silverado's keys slip in my sweaty hands as I jam them into the ignition, Selma's screams ringing in my ears. Perry's out there, his grunt echoing where his shouts cut off, and those red eyes burn in the dark, closer now. The truck roars to life, headlights carving through the black, but my heart's pounding so hard I can't think. That musty stench, rotten, alive, floods the cab, and I'm choking on horror, yelling for Perry to run. Selma's clawing at the door, locking it, her face pale as she begs me to drive. I lean out, scanning for Perry, but a shadow, tall, matted, impossibly fast, surges past the fire, and I hear him yelp, a sickening thud following. I slam the gas, the Silverado lurching forward, tires chewing dirt as I aim for him. He's crawling, blood glinting on his face, and I swerve to stop, door open. Selma's shouting not to wait, but I can't leave him. I'm halfway out when something slams the truck's side, rocking us hard, and I see it. Broad, hairy, eyes like fire. It's real, and it's coming. Perry stumbles in, collapsing across the back seat, gasping, his arm torn and slick. I floor it, the Silverado bouncing over roots, branches scraping like screams. Selma's sobbing, checking Perry, her hands shaking as she presses his jacket to the wound. The trail's a blur, my headlights bouncing, and I'm pushing the truck past its limit, the engine howling. In the rear view, nothing follows, but I feel it, chasing, relentless. The horror's got me tight, like a noose, and I'm praying we hit the highway before it catches up. A rut jars us, the wheel jerking in my hands, and Perry groans, his voice weak, saying it grabbed him, wouldn't let go. My stomach twists. Those gashes weren't random, and neither is this. Selma's muttering about her grandpa, how he saw eyes like that and never slept right again. I'm focused on the road, dodging trees, but something crashes to our left, heavy and fast, keeping pace. My knuckles are white, and I'm thinking about Twin Falls, how safe my couch sounds right now. The trail narrows, forcing me to slow, and that's when the roar hits, deep, shattering, from behind. It's not giving up. I'm weaving through pines, the Silverado's frame groaning, and Selma's screaming about a light ahead, a ranger road, maybe our shot. Perry's fading, his breathing ragged, blood pooling on the floor. I'm yelling his name, trying to keep him here, but my voice is drowned by another crash, closer, like it's toying with us. The horror's alive, and it's not done. Headlights catch gravel, a spur road, leading out. I gun it, tires spinning, the truck fishtailing as we climb. Selma's praying, her words jumbled, and I'm checking the mirrors, expecting those eyes any second. Something thuds the roof, denting it inward, and I swerve, nearly rolling US. My heart's in my throat, but the highway's close. I can see it, pavement gleaming under moonlight. We're almost there, but Perry's too quiet, and the truck's shaking, warning lights flashing. We hit asphalt, the Silverado screaming as I push it toward Orofino. The forest falls back, but that stench clings, seeping through the vents. Selma's crying, pressing harder on Perry's wound, but he's not responding, his face gray. I'm shaking so bad I can barely steer, my eyes darting to the dark. Nothing moves, but I don't trust it. Those eyes could be anywhere. The dash shows low fuel when I know I topped off. It's wrong, scary wrong, and I'm starting to think this thing planned it. Orofino's lights flicker, maybe 15 minutes out. I'm thinking hospital, help, anything to save Perry. But the engine stutters, coughing like it's choking. Selma sees the gauge, her voice breaking, saying it's not a coincidence. A shadow crosses the road, tall, deliberate, gone fast. My blood's ice, and I floor it, the truck whining. A pullout's ahead, a faded sign for a ranger station. It's our only play, but Perry's slipping, and I'm not sure we'll make it. We're limping along, the engine fading, when the truck shudders, slowing to a crawl. Selma's banging the dash, tears streaming, and I'm gripping the wheel, willing it to keep going. The pullout's close, but the dark's closing in, and I hear it, a low growl, trailing us. My knife's in my lap, pointless now, and Perry's silent, his blood cold under my touch. The horror's got us, and I'm starting to think we're not outrunning it. Not tonight, not ever. The Silverado dies just shy of the pullout, engine gasping out. I slam my fist on the dash, cursing myself for not turning back yesterday, for ignoring those smears, Selma's fear. Perry's gone quiet in the back, his chest still, blood soaking everything. Selma's sobbing, saying we need to run, but I'm not sure I can move. That stench is everywhere, thick as tar, and the horror's crushing me. Whispering, I let us hear. My knife's no match for what's coming, but I grab it anyway, like it matters. I kick the door open, cold air slapping me awake. Selma's helping me drag Perry out, his weight unbearable, but we can't leave him. The ranger station's a shadow across the pullout, maybe 100 yards, but every step feels like drowning. My flashlight shakes, catching nothing, but the growl's back, low, circling, closer than before. Selma's limping, her ankle twisted from the scramble, and I'm begging Perry to hold on, even though I know he's gone. Guilt's tearing me apart. I should have listened. We're halfway when Selma stops, staring at the trees. Red eyes flare, high, unblinking, locked on us. My legs buckle, but I pull her forward, Perry's body dragging between us. The station's door glints, our only shot, but the growl spikes, vibrating in my gut. I'm thinking about my office in Twin Falls, my boring life, how I'd give anything to be there now. The mistake was mine, pushing us to stay, thinking we could handle the wild. It's not wild. It's something else, something old and angry. We reach the door. It's locked, a rusted padlock mocking us. I pound on it, screaming, but it's empty, just a shack in the dark. Selma's crying, pressing Perry's jacket to his chest, like it'll help. The growl's right behind us now, and I turn, knife up, seeing it, taller than any man, fur reeking, moving too fast. I swing, hitting nothing, and Selma shoves me, yelling to run. She's grabbing Perry, trying to shield him, and I'm frozen, horror swallowing me whole. It's on her before I can move, a blur of muscle and rage, ripping her from Perry's side. Her scream chokes off, and I'm stumbling back, knife gone, my hands useless. Perry's body hits the ground, abandoned, and I'm running, coward, failure, toward the road. The thing's focused on them, giving me seconds, but it's not mercy, it's choice. My boots slip, pavement biting my knees, and I'm sobbing, knowing I left them to die. Those eyes are still there, watching satisfied. I'm staggering down the highway, alone, when headlights catch me, a logger's truck, slowing. I'm babbling, pointing to the pullout, but my words are mush. Perry, Selma, monster. The driver calls it in, his radio crackling, and rangers show up, their faces grim. They find blood, the station's door splintered, but no bodies, no tracks. It's a cougar, they say, but their eyes flicker like they've heard this before. I'm shaking, wrapped in a blanket, the stench still in my nose. They drive me to Orofino, the Silverado towed, its dents screaming my failure. Hospital lights burn, questions pile up, but I've got nothing, just loss, raw and heavy. Back in Twin Falls, my house feels wrong, too quiet. I quit my job, can't face people asking where I've been. The tackle box is still in the truck, unopened, like a ghost I can't touch. I don't fish anymore, don't sleep either. Clearwater's out there, keeping its secrets, and I'm left with nightmares. Red eyes, Selma's scream, Perry's blood. I see them in every shadow, hear them in every creak. The mistake was thinking we belonged there, that we could camp and walk away. Something's awake in those woods, and it took everything. My friends, my nerve, my peace. It's in me now, that horror, and it's not letting go. I burned my tent last week, watched it curl to ash. Didn't help. Some things you carry, no matter how far you run. I'm done with forests, done with chances. Clearwater won, and I'm just what's left.